Where you hear from? Very good. I've heard. Just a little bit of just barely close enough that I live in Indiana and drive miles area and states there. Yeah. Yes, yes, very, very close. Yes, it's. I know there's a shop there.
I have to remember everybody that I told you I was going to give the link to. And a very yeah. Everybody what's your limit? Or did you want to sit closer?
I would like to.
What's the other? Here? Is there a spot with two? Wherever you want to go.
Looks like there's a lot of spots.
I know.
We're going to
No.
He said he was going to
That's fine. How's your lunch? Good. I can vote.
No, you're not talking.
Resolution sanctuary and support for immigrants and refugees. I just got a big plate. Oops.
Oh, me, I'm
so
sorry. That's okay.
Oh, yeah.
Where are you sitting today?
I'm over by the door. I think I'm in Port Huron there.
Wendy and I.
I stayed in church right
This is a 4-minute warning to the drop of the gavel. And as a reminder, you are free to sit wherever you'd like. If you'd like to sit in the place you were yesterday, go right ahead. It is the Episcopal thing to do. If you'd like to sit elsewhere, do so.
Yeah.
It's like when you look at the fridge for the ketchup and you can't find it, and then your spouse goes over and pulls it out first thing. It is. It's genetic.
I am. Greetings, everyone. You have 5 seconds to sit in your chairs. 5 seconds. We do. 5. All right. I call to order this business session for the Episcopal Diocese of the Great Lakes. That's my gavel. I call on Youth Delegate Liv York from St. Mark's Grand Rapids to lead us in our opening prayer.
God be with you. Let us pray. O God, by your grace, you have called us to the diocese to a goodly fellowship of faith. Bless the laity and the clergy of this diocese. Grant that the word may be truly preached and truly heard, your sacraments faithfully administered and faithfully received. By your Spirit, fashion our lives according to the example of your Son, and grant that we may show the power of all of your love to all among whom we live. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Liv. Chancellor Fleener, will you please report on the status of our quorum?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Pursuant to Canon 234L, I believe, our quorum is determined by having a third of clergy who are registered in the diocese present and a majority of lay delegates who are registered for convention present. And we have met both. We have 170 lay delegates, including youth, and we have 88 clergy delegates.
So we have a quorum in both orders. Without objection, I appoint William Fleener Jr., Chancellor of the Diocese of the Great Lakes, parliamentarian for this convention. Thank you, Bill, for your assistance, not just now and throughout the year. As a diocese, we are grateful for the many hours of counsel and support you offer us, as well as your wisdom and guidance, especially through juncture. Can we give him a round of applause? Chancellor Fleener, will you please present the joint rules of order?
So in your packet, way in the back, is the rules of order. We operate in general under Robert's rules, but we do make some exceptions to that fit the way we do our work. If you are a Robert's Rules of Order nerd, you're my people. There are some things you want to read here. If you're not, don't worry about it. I would point out that there are rules that govern how we speak when something is before us as a body. Those rules allow each of us to speak for, hopefully not each of us, but allow each of us to speak for up to 3 minutes. You may speak once on any given item, unless you are the originator of that item, and then you get to speak twice. We also have a limit of 30 minutes for any particular item, which we can vary. If we get to the 30 minutes, the chair will tell us that we've reached our time. We can extend that as a body if we choose to, but that's the limit we start with. Since it will likely come up, I want to point out that the rules can be suspended. So we were likely to see a motion to suspend the rules that most of you, I believe, have heard about. Allows for us as a body to suspend these rules and operate in a different way. A motion to suspend the rules takes a 2/3 vote, and it is not debatable. So when the person rises to make a motion, they'll tell you what motion they make. They are not supposed to address the substance, and then it is not debatable. We will immediately vote. And if the rules are suspended, that person, if it's the same person, will then be able to offer what they wanted to offer but didn't fit under the current rules. If you have questions about the rules of order, we're happy to answer them. Feel free to go to a microphone and ask for a point of order. If you think something's being done wrong, I do not profess to be the world's greatest parliamentarian. Spent a lot of time doing it, but if you think we've done something wrong, please go to a microphone and ask for clarification or ask for a point of order. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. The chair would entertain a motion to accept the rules of order as presented. Okay. Jim Para and whom? Ellen Schrader, second. All in favor, please raise your green voting cards. The rules of order have been accepted. I call on Chancellor Bill Fleener to discuss extending the privileges of seat and voice to certain groups of individuals in the diocese.
Thank you. Canon 2, 3, 4 of our new canons provide for more people to have seat and voice at our convention than was the case under either of the canons of the previous diocese. So this list is shorter than it's been in past years, which I think is great. The following people do not have seat and voice, and it has been our history to make a motion to allow that. Lay members of diocesan council who are not delegates, lay members of standing committee who are not delegates, members of diocesan staff, and postulants and candidates for holy orders.
We would entertain a motion to extend the privileges of seat and voice to the people listed by the Chancellor. All right, Jed gets it for the motion, and who is a second? Alicia for the second. Alicia Hager for the second. All right, all in favor, please raise your green voting cards. The motion passes. I now call on Mary Simpson, Chair of the Nominating Committee, to present the committee's slate of candidates for the respective diocesan leadership positions and bodies.
I want to thank the members of the nominating committee and all who have agreed to be nominated to serve in these diocesan leadership positions. We elect one individual, lay or clergy, to serve as the Secretary of Convention. On behalf of the nominating committee, I nominate Mr. Mark Sullivan, Grace, Grand Rapids. We elect one individual, lay or clergy, to serve as the treasurer of the diocese. On behalf of the nominating committee, I nominate the Reverend Dr. Jared Kramer, St. John's, Grand Haven. For standing committee, we are electing one person, clergy or lay, to a one-year unexpired term. On behalf of the committee, I nominate the Very Reverend Dr. Derek Quinn, Grace Traverse City and St. Paul's, Elk Rapids, and the Reverend Dr. Chris Veldheer, St. John's, Sturgis. We are electing two lay and one clergy to serve full 3-year terms on the standing committee. For the lay positions, I nominate on behalf of the nominating committee, Ms. Dana Phillips, St. Paul's, Greenville, Ms. Pam Redinger, St. Mark's, Newaygo, Mr. Jason Smith, St. John the Apostle, Ionia, and Mr. Luke Stefanowski, Trinity, West Branch. For the clergy positions, the committee nominates the Reverend Jedediah Fox, St. Mark's, Grand Rapids, and the Reverend Mary Short, Holy Family, St. Clair, Trinity, Lexington. For diocesan council, we are electing one lay person to a one-year unexpired term and two clergy and two lay members of the diocese to full 3-year terms. Previously, Freya Gilbert was elected to complete what was then thought to be a 1-year term, unexpired term. In fact, it was a 2-year unexpired term. Therefore, the search committee, on behalf of the standing committee, nominates Freya Gilbert, St. Paul's, St. Joseph, to be elected to a 1-year unexpired term to complete the term that she was previously elected to serve in. Everybody got that? Additionally, on behalf of the nominating committee, I nominate the following lay members to a full 3-year term. Ms. Carol Mogo of St. Francis Grayling, Mr. Ed Walters, St. Paul's, Flint. For the clergy positions, I nominate the Very Reverend Brian D. Chase, retired supply priest, the Reverend Brian Coleman, Holy Trinity Manistee. We are electing 4 lay and 4 clergy as deputies to the General Convention, and up to 4 lay and 4 alternates for both orders. On behalf of the nominating committee, I nominate the following individuals to serve as lay deputies or alternates. Mr. Donald DeWalt, St. Paul's, Elk Rapids. Mr. William Fleener, St. David's, Lansing. Ms. Raina Haller, St. Paul's, Flint. Miss Gloria Lara, St. Mark's, Grand Rapids. Miss Allie Miller, Holy Family, Midland. Miss Sarah Philo, St. John's, Midland, diocesan staff. On behalf of the committee, I nominate the following individuals to serve as clergy deputies or alternates. The Reverend Jen Adams, Grace Holland. The Reverend Dr. Jared Kramer, St. John's, Grand Haven. The Reverend Dr. Donald Davidson, retired supply priest. The Reverend Jedediah Fox, St. Mark's, Grand Rapids. The Reverend Pamela Nardowitz, St. Mark's, Atlanta. St. Andrew's, Gaylord. The Reverend Tom Manny, St. Paul's, Flint. The Very Reverend Rada Jody Michelle Tropaga. I'm sorry, Rada. The Reverend Canon Nuria Love Parish. And the Reverend Linda Shear, St. Gregory's, Muskegon. The diocese elects 1 clergy and 2 lay members to the Provincial Synod. On behalf of the nominating committee, I nominate the following individuals to serve as lay deputies. Ms. Mackenzie Bade-Nill, Grace Port Huron, and diocesan staff. Dr. Nancy Foster, St. Mary's, Cadillac. On behalf of the nominating committee, as clergy, I nominate the Reverend J. Barrett Lee, St. Mark's, Coldwater. Candidate biographies can be found on pages 18 of the convention booklet. Lastly, we are happy to report that all of the candidates have met diocesan requirements regarding safe church, safe community, and dismantling racism trainings.
I invite all of the candidates present to stand that we might express our appreciation for your faithful service to the diocese and your willingness to stand for election to serve in this way. And let's also give Mary a round of applause to thank the members of the nominating committee for their work. Before we move on to the business of electing, would everyone whose term in any of these leadership roles is concluding, please rise so that we might express our gratitude for your faithful service in these extraordinary times. And we found a phone in the hallway. It has a beautiful small child here, and it is a green case. If it's yours, please come up and find it and get it. All right. Because a committee makes these nominations, a second is not required. Additional, the chair notes the following nominations represent uncontested elections: the Secretary of Convention, Treasurer of the Diocese, Diocesan Council for the 1-year unexpired lay, 3-year lay, and 3-year clergy positions, and Provincial Synod Deputy Lay and Clergy. Therefore, I would ask the convention to vote by acclamation. All in favor of electing the individuals nominated, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Good job, guys. These individuals have been elected. I call on our voting secretary, Mike Poole, to calibrate our voting devices and conduct our elections for the remaining positions.
Hello again, everyone. How you doing? Sure you can hear me. Okay. All right. So pull out your keypads if you got them in your hands. Let me see them. Everybody looks like they got them. All right. Go ahead. We're going to go ahead and do a couple of quick test questions. Go ahead and make sure your keypad is powered on, bottom right-hand corner. You'll see the numbers and a battery meter indicating that it's on. Make sure those batteries are full. All right. All right. When your keypad says vote now, you'll enter the number of your choice that you wish to select. The number will appear in the display. You want to double check it for accuracy. You can use the delete button to backspace or change your vote. Press the send button to submit your vote. And after a few seconds, you'll see the counted message. All right. And to correct your vote, you simply enter a new number and press send. The system will only count your last entry. If you press before polling is open, an X will show up on your screen, or if you wait till after it's closed, an X will also show up on your screen. All right, we're going to go ahead and do a quick test question, then we're going to go into a multiple selection. So give me one second. All right, we're going to start with an easy one today. All right, what's your favorite color? We have 1 for red, 2 for orange, 3 for yellow, 4 for green, 5 for blue, 6 for pink, and 7 for purple. Please vote now.
We only vote for one.
Only vote for one. Is it powered on?
Oh, the telephone. Awesome. I know.
All right, we had one battery issue. Anybody else having any issues? Everybody's keypad says counted. All right, I'm gonna go set up the next question. I'll be right back.
Ooh. Green lead. Blue, 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 blue. Go green. Green did well. I feel like yellow and orange are just so underrated. I do like yellow a lot. Good job, Mike. You're doing.
All right, now the fun starts. We've got a multiple selection question. This is where you're going to choose more than one, okay? We're going to have 2 favorite pizza toppings here. Now, the way this is going to work, can you go back to the instruction slide? The PowerPoint. And then advance one. Sorry, I'm catching my breath here. Keep going. Forwards. Keep going, keep going. There we go. All right. For a multiple selection vote, it'll again say vote now. You're going to enter your first selection and press send. After you do that, it'll say remain one, meaning you have one more chance to put in another selection. Enter your second selection, press send, then you'll see counted. Easy enough? All right. Now, if you do need to reset. So you press the wrong number and you hit send. You're like, oh, I didn't mean to do that. 3 zeros and send clears everything out and you start over from scratch. Sound good? All right, go back to the question for me. I'm actually just going to take this with me and make it a lot easier. All right. All right, so we have 1 pepperoni, 2 mushrooms, 3 sausage, 4 peppers, 5 onions, 6 olives, 7 anchovies, and 8 pineapple. I'm going to go ahead and give you 60 seconds on this one because it's a little bit longer. Not yet. All right, vote now. And you see in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, I don't know if you can see, it's kind of faint down here. We got the time there, time left. We're going to do 30 seconds for the single selections and 60 for the multiples. Anybody having any issues, please raise your hand. Blocked means you've already entered both of your selections. If you want to test, go ahead and press 000 send on that blocked, and then it'll let you do it again. But blocked just means you've already entered your 2 selections and you're trying to enter a third. 15 seconds left. Everybody feeling good? All right, polling is closed.
We have a
And
request that everyone turns their phone on silent. Thank you.
pepperoni wins. Well, no, it doesn't. I'm sorry. Let's fix that so it looks right. There we go. Mushrooms wins it all. All right. Thank you all very much, and enjoy the rest of your day. Yep, we're going right into voting now.
Thank you so much, Mike. Will you lead us in voting for the standing committee 1-year lay or clergy unexpired term? The nominees for a 1-year lay or clergy unexpired term of the standing committee are the Very Reverend Derek Quinn, St. Paul's Elk Rapids, Grace Traverse City, the Reverend Chris Valdier, St. John Sturgis. Please vote for 1 candidate. Voting is now open. Voting will close in 1 minute. 30 seconds. Voting is now closed. Mike, will you please post the election results when they have been verified? Yeah. On the first ballot, 260 votes were cast. And how many votes were? 131 were required to receive a majority and be elected. And the Very Reverend Derek Quinn has been elected. All right. Okay. Mike, will you please continue with the election for the lay standing committee members? We are voting to elect 2 lay persons to the standing committee. The nominees are Dana Phillips, St. Paul's, Greenville; Pam Redinger, St. Mark's, Newaygo; Jason Smith, St. John the Apostle, Ionia; Luke Stefanowski, Trinity, West Branch. Please vote for 2 candidates. And the voting is now open. Voting will close in 1 minute. All right. On the first ballot, 260 votes were cast. 131 votes were necessary to receive a majority and be elected. And Miss Dana Phillips and Luke Stefanowski have been elected. Mike, will you lead us in voting for clergy members of the standing committee? Remember, we will be voting for 1 individual on the first ballot. And our nominees for the clergy member of the standing committee are the Reverend Jedediah Fox, St. Mark's, Grand Rapids, and the Reverend Mary Short, Holy Family, St. Clair Trinity, Lexington. Please vote for 1 candidate. And the voting is now open, and voting will close in 30 seconds. Voting is now closed. On the first ballot, 265 votes were cast. 133 were necessary to receive a majority and be elected. And the Reverend Jedediah Fox has been elected to a full 3-year term. Mike, will you lead us in the election of lay deputies to the General Convention? The nominees for lay deputy to General Convention are Donald DeWalt, St. Paul's, Elk Rapids; William Fleener, St. David's, Lansing; Raina Hodder, St. Paul's, Flint; Gloria Lara, St. Mark's, Grand Rapids; Allie Miller, Holy Family, Midland; Sarah Philo, St. John's, Midland, Diocesan staff. Please vote for 4 candidates. And the voting is now open. All right, voting is closed. This is so much better than the paper ballot days, isn't it? All right. On our first ballot, 265 votes were cast and 133 votes are necessary to receive a majority and be elected. So Bill Fleener has and Sarah Philo, Miss Gloria Lara, and Miss Allie Miller have been elected to serve as lay deputies to General Convention. And based on the votes received on the final ballot, the lay alternates to General Convention are Ms. Raina Hodder, Mr. Donald DeWalt. Mike, will you lead us in the election of clergy deputies to General Convention? The nominees for clergy deputy to General Convention are the Reverend Jennifer Adams, Grace Holland, the Reverend Dr. Jared Kramer, St. John's Grand Haven, the Reverend Dr. Don Davidson, retired supply priest, the Reverend Jedediah Fox, St. Mark's Grand Rapids, the Reverend Pam Lenardowitz, St. Mark's Atlanta, and St. Andrews Gaylord, the Reverend Tom Manny, St. Paul's Flint, the Reverend Canon Nuria Love Parish, diocesan staff, the Reverend Linda Shearer, St. Gregory's Muskegon, the Reverend Radha Trapanga, Central Michigan, Episcopal Covenant and St. Andrews Big Rapids, and St. Mary's Cadillac. Please vote for 4 candidates. The voting is now open and it will close in 1 minute. The voting is now closed. All right. On the first ballot, 265 votes were cast. 133 votes were necessary to receive a majority and be elected. The Reverend Jennifer Adams, the Reverend Canon Nuri Love Parrish, the Reverend Pamela Lenardowitz have all been elected, and we need to run another vote, right? The remaining candidates, we need to run another vote with them. So you vote for one here, the Reverend Dr. Jared Kramer, the Reverend Dr. Don Davidson, the Reverend Jedediah Fox, the Reverend Tom Manny, the Reverend Rada, the Reverend Linda Shear. Okay, stop.
Before I start the polling, I just want to note the numbers. There is no number 1, there is no number 5, there is no number 8. So just keep track of that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, should we stop? Stop it? Okay.
So before we do that vote, our canons say on a second election, the numbers are narrowed down to twice the number of offices available by order of the preceding ballot. So on this ballot, Jared, if this isn't the order, I don't have the order. Do you have the order from last time? Rada and Tom should be the only people represented on the ballot. You think so?
We recognize microphone C.
Figure out alternates then.
We will take the remaining candidates in order of votes received on the last ballot they appeared on, and they will be the alternates in that order.
Excellent, thank you.
All right, voting is open. And you notice that it's 6 or 7. Those are the two you can vote for. Yes? Those are the wrong two. Jared and Tom? No. Those are the right two. Those are the right two. That's Rada and Tom. Yep. Good. Okay. Okay. Rada and Tom. Yes. Okay. Voting is closed.
did. We are getting. So I would note that it is the history of both dioceses and will be the history of our diocese when we make one, that the first alternate is included in the deputation. So the 4 elected deputies and the first alternate from each order will be supported to attend by the diocese. Other alternates are welcome to come, and they certainly have. And have sat on the floor for convention, but the diocese pays for the expenses of the 4 deputies and the first alternate in each order.
All right, while we're waiting, did anyone else just leave convention yesterday with a spirit of joy? We have a lot to be proud of right now, y'all. And let's just remember that, especially as we go our separate ways. Hearing everybody talk about the work in their churches and such good work being done throughout the diocese was just such a source of encouragement. I am just so proud to be part of you all. And I know we're all in this together. Does anybody have any jokes? No. Do you have any jokes? Yes, Ellen.
You know, I'm going to ask a question.
Uh-oh, you have to go up to the microphone, Ellen. I can't hear you. The chair recognizes the questioner at microphone C.
Well, I'm old, and I also had a stroke like 3 months ago, and so I don't remember who the first alternate was on the list of General Convention deputies.
Raina.
Lay or clergy?
Raina.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And okay, so for this, on the second ballot this time, 232 votes were cast and 117 votes were necessary to receive a majority and be elected. And the Reverend Rada Jody Michelle Trapanga was elected. Trapaga, sorry. Trapaga, thank you, sorry. Was elected. And the Reverend Tom Manny is our alternate, and then first alternate, and then we have the Reverend Dr. Jared Kramer, the Reverend Dr. Don Davidson, and the Reverend Linda Shearer. Congratulations to everyone. And now we go to, yes. I am very grateful for the work of the Commission on Ministry in assisting me and the members of the Standing Committee in their work of discernment around vocation for lay and ordained ministry in the church. They have worked very hard this year overseeing 40 people in the ordination process and developing newly adopted ordination policy. Special thanks go to Ellen McVeigh and the Reverend Lily Marks for their leadership. We also want to thank the outgoing members who are completing their terms on the commission this year, Dr. Rosemary Hagan, the Reverend Trish Harris, the Reverend Annalie Kuby, the Reverend Jim Para. Please join me in expressing to them our heartfelt thanks. The Standing Committee approved appointing the following individuals to serve 2- and 3-year terms on the commission. The Reverend Jennifer Frechette, and she is serving a 2-year term. The Reverend Kay Hauk, 2-year term. The Reverend Michael Hushin, a 3-year term. The Reverend Wendy Pearson, a 3-year term. And Fred Skidmore, 3 years. And canons require the convention to affirm these appointments. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposing? Please join me in thanking our new COM members for their willingness to serve in this capacity. Woo! now wish to welcome and introduce to the convention those clergy new to the diocese and those who began new calls since we gathered for convention last year. Please stand as your name is called and remain standing through the reading of the names. The Reverend Barry Bates, Nativity, Boyne City. The Reverend David Blank, St. James Pentwater. The Reverend Jonathan Bratt Carl, Two Churches, Kentwood, Holy Trinity, Wyoming. The Reverend Brian Coleman, St. John's, Onekama. The Reverend Mike Fedewa, St. James Beaver Island. The Reverend Jedediah Fox, St. Mark's Grand Rapids. The Reverend Barrett Lee, St. Mark's Coldwater. The Reverend Matt Roney, Trinity, Alpena. The Reverend Ryan Lockwood, Grace, Traverse City. The Reverend Nicole Smith, Trinity, Three Rivers. The Reverend Chris Valdier, St. John Sturgis. The Reverend Aaron Jean Ward, Christchurch, Charlevoix. The Reverend Teresa Williams, Transfiguration, Indian River. The Reverend Alan James. Oh. And the Reverend Alan James, who left himself off the list. We are so grateful for individuals who are engaged in the ordination process as postulants and candidates for holy orders. Please stand as your name is called. Preparing for the priesthood, the Reverend Abraham Anai, Sudanese Grace, Grand Rapids. Miss Lori Atwood, thank you. Atwater, woo! Next to the lake, thank you. St. Martin's, Kalamazoo. Mr. Brian Boyton, St. John Sturgis. Mr. Dong Dang, Sudanese Grace, Grand Rapids. Miss Kathy Hawkins, St. Paul's, Gladwin. Miss Janet Huff-Warvey, St. John's, Otter Lake. Miss Rebecca Taylor, St. John's, Grand Haven. Miss Paige Wilson, St. Andrew's, Grand Rapids. And those preparing for the diaconate, Dr. Christy Brooks, St. John's, Mount Pleasant. Miss Christy Hamill, St. Paul's, Muskegon. And we are just so grateful for all of you who are giving yourself to this process and offering yourselves to serve God in these particular ministries. The following individuals have retired or announced their retirement since last year's convention. Will you please stand as your name is called and remain standing? The Reverend David Myers, St. Peter's Montague. The Reverend Eileen Stoffen, St. Paul's, Muskegon. And we also want to acknowledge the retirement of David Penniman after 10 years as the faithful lay pastoral leader at Church of the Nativity in Boyne City. Will you join me in recognizing them? And now, let's take a moment and remember the clergy of the diocese who have died since we last gathered. The Reverend Donis Reitz, the Reverend John Inman, the Reverend John Laycock, the Reverend Gerald Reagan, the Reverend David Angus Brower, the Reverend Ruth Schaff Clausen, the Reverend Nancy Casey Fulton. The Lord be with you. And also with you. Let us pray. Almighty God, with whom still live the spirits of those who die in the Lord, and with whom the souls of the faithful are in joy and felicity, we give you heartfelt thanks for the good examples of all your servants who, having finished their course in faith, now find rest and refreshment. May we, with all who have died in the true faith of your holy name, have perfect fulfillment and bliss in your eternal and everlasting glory through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Amen. The diocesan lay necrology can be found in the in memoriam section of the convention handbook on page 47 of your handbook. So I now call on Sarah Philo, Chief Financial Officer and Benefits Administrator, and the Reverend Jared Kramer, Treasurer, to present the 2026 operating budget for consideration and adoption. A link to the proposed diocesan budget can be found on page 78 of the convention handbook.
Great. Hi. Good to see you all. I think I'm ready. Come on up, Sarah. That way, if they have questions, I can go down there. All right. Can I go? Well, good. Hi, I'm your treasurer. I'm Jared. I'm the rector of St. John's Grand Haven and also treasurer of your diocese. So delighted to share with you today our year-to-date 2025 financials, our proposed apportionment, and our proposed 2026 budget for the year. These are the wonderful people who serve on your finance committee. It's a great group of people. As you heard me say in pre-convention meetings, their goal is to spend 2 hours on financials so that Diocesan Council can spend 15 minutes on financials. And they truly do give tremendous care to every line of the financials, every line of the budget. They're very, very good stewards of our resources. Father Brian Chase, who is assistant treasurer, myself, Mr. Gary Grin, Mother Alicia Hager, who is ex officio as Diocesan Council Vice Chair, Father Alan James, who's ex officio as our interim executive officer, Ms. Gloria Lara, Ms. Carol Mago, Ms. Sarah Philo, who's our CFO and ex officio, Father Derek Quinn, Deacon Pat Vingy, and Father John Wakefield. Let's show our gratitude to all of those on the committee. In case you're looking for a Halloween costume, how to scare an accountant, boo, boo, boo. The spreadsheet has crashed and we lost all the data. Ah! Good joke. Well, that's the nice thing about Google. I thought I'd get more laughs, actually, but that's okay. There we go. That's the kind of laugh I was looking for. Thank you, Rachel. I will pay you later. If you want to read the detailed version of this report, you can scan that QR code. It's also a short link there at the bottom. It's a lot of fun. It's very long. All the details are there. If you have questions on any of the details that you don't want to ask at convention in front of everyone, feel free to talk to me later. These financial reports are a little bit different than what you got in pre-convention because in the time since pre-convention happened and today we had successfully reconciled Q2 financials. So that's what I'm reporting on. Actually, Sarah just sent in the finance committee Q3 financials. Woo! All done and reconciled. I'm going to be really clear. That happened yesterday, and I have not looked at those yet. So we're not talking about those. She's so disappointed. That's fair. So I believe our financial statements reflect a diocese that's in transition, but on firm footing. We're showing steady progress towards reconciled, transparent reporting and strong overall financial health with over 27 million in total assets of our diocese, minimal liabilities, and improving systems for accountability and liquidity. We are well positioned to move from catching up to planning strategically for mission and growth, which is all of our goal. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's tell you about the big picture of the financials. The first 2 quarters, as I said, are fully reconciled. We have Q3 now. I wrote this report clearly before then. After that, we're expecting that we'll be able to get regular reconciled quarterly reports within about 2 to 3 weeks of each quarter's end. That will leave out endowment reconciliations. Those sometimes take a little bit longer for us to get, but everything else should be good to go. Our goal is to move, hopefully, to maybe a system called RAMP to streamline our accounts payable. I will say, if you're looking for a system to help with your accounts payable, I commend RAMP to you. It's a cloud-based accounts payable system where it handles all of your credit card systems. The nice things is the people who get the credit card for your church don't have to give their social security number because RAMP runs the system and you run the system. So it's helpful. Really good way of doing everything online. All receipts kept online, all payments done online. It's really a great system, and we're hoping to move there to help us be a little more effective. If you want to look at the balance sheet or our statement of financial position, we have about $10 million in board designated net assets. So that means that that's technically money that is restricted, but at any moment, Diocesan Council could decide that they wanted to send Joe Kennedy to Punta Cana, and they could use that money to do that. Or maybe a more pious and charitable use than that. We have $4 million in donor restricted net assets. Can't touch those. Those are for what people gave it for. Endowments are about $4 million. Some of those are restricted by donors, some by board. Our unrestricted fund balance is about 1.5 million, we think. So that's our accumulated cash reserves. We're still finalizing some audit things to make sure that's a solid number. Our goal, going forward with the balance sheet is we have a lot of board restricted or designated funds that are kind of duplicative between the two legacy dioceses. So we're going to work on joining the ones together that we don't need like 4 funds for, I don't know, shoes for the priest. I don't know what it might be. So we can join all those funds together that are for similar purposes and have a bit cleaner of a balance sheet. When we look at our net assets, our operating cash runs a little over $1 million. That's sitting across 3 general checking accounts. That's not a really effective cash management system because that means the bank is just making oodles of money on our $1 million sitting in the checking account, right? So we're working on implementing a sweep system through PNC to get a better cash yield on some of that currency that we hold. We have some savings in CDs, about 1.32 million. That's a mixture of designated and restricted assets. And we have total assets, as I said earlier, of $27 million. That's all of the resources we have to do ministry as the people of God. Just real quickly, when we think about resources, this is our average Sunday attendance over the past roughly 10 years. 2024 reports just came out. Over those past 10 years, you can see we've seen around a 40% decline. It's actually the same for our baptized membership, for those that are wondering. And of course, baptized membership doesn't show the COVID bump, right? That's just the decline. That's not really the best news in the world. It has been going up, our average Sunday attendance, but as we talked about a little bit, those 3 years that are listed there are the years we were coming back to in-person worship, right? We were declining before the pandemic at a rate of about 7% annually, each diocese. After the pandemic, I did that backwards. We were declining at a rate of 3% after the pandemic. So far, we've been going up at a rate of 7%. So that's good, right? We went to a stop there. So the real question will be, where do we go from here? What I want to say is with the resources we have as the diocese, we have resources to reverse the trend of decline that previously existed in our 2 legacy dioceses. And it's essential that we take the resources we have and we leverage them strategically. Having $27 million as a diocese, having $10 million in board designated assets, having over probably $1.5 million in just money we could spend whatever we want on, while we have churches that are struggling to grow, to become viable, sustainable, is not a good solution for us as a diocese. So we're working really hard to try to leverage those resources down into local ministry and into local communities. Net assets overview. We want to use our assets to drive our mission, sustainability, and growth. We want to begin preparing a diocesan grants program once we have that unrestricted net assets figure finalized. We talked about that at last convention. We did some initial work on it at this convention. The idea being of taking some of those accumulated cash reserves. And the reason we want to put those back, those accumulated cash reserves largely are because our diocese saved a lot of money on salary lines for things like bishops over the past few years, right? You all paid an apportionment, but you didn't actually get a bishop. And so that saved money that the diocese has been accumulating really needs to be turned around and put to work in the diocese for grant work to help strengthen congregation. So we're hoping to get that rolled out pretty soon. Our goal as well, we have a subcommittee working on all grants that exist in our diocese. We have a lot of them. It's a very big spreadsheet. Our goal is to have all of those on one single page on the diocesan website, a really easy explanation what each grant is for, how much is available, what an application looks like, who decides it, so that we can ensure that as much as we can, we're getting that money into the hands of our local congregations and Episcopal entities. When you look at our statement of activities, revenues over expenses, our revenue as of year to date, about 1.15 million, down 152,000 from where we would expect to be at the budget. That's largely because apportionments lag a little bit in the middle of the year. We are moving now to an ACH system for apportionment payment that'll help with that. There you go. Apportionments are behind 108,000. That's most of that revenue lag. We've also had some underspending areas of communications, IT development, due to vacancies or delays in hiring. That's why we're a little lower in expenses. We also approved some adjustments. We increased IT and telephone systems. Where some updates we needed to do as we came together. We don't anticipate those overages continuing into future years. In summary, for our financial statements, we have strong reserves, minimal liabilities. Sarah's office is working really hard to improve our systems, the way we sweep cash, the way we do apportionment payments, the way we consolidate accounts on the balance sheet. And our finance committee is confident in a stable foundation for the something. I'm guessing it's the future of our diocese. That's a joke. What questions do you have on the year-to-date financials? Look how exciting that was. That's delightful. For a minute, let's talk about the proposed apportionment. Our canons don't define an apportionment rate for us as a new diocese. Previously, in the Diocese of Eastern Michigan, it was a flat 10% rate. In the Diocese of Western Michigan, it was a progressive rate. We needed to come up with a new system. And the way the canons say is that the Diocesan Council recommends what they think is the best apportionment system, and then you all decide sure or no. So that's what we're going to do today. It's really exciting. Let me tell you a little bit about it. I really believe an apportionment is not a bill. It's our shared commitment to one another. It's the way that we pool our resources so that every parish, every ministry can thrive in our diocese. It's how we live as one in the body of Christ, so that one part of our body flourishes, all parts of our body flourish. Our budget is a tool for mission. We seek to align our resources with our calling to embody the love of Jesus with grace, hope, and joy. Every dollar we invest as a diocese hopefully is invested to equip our leaders, to strengthen our congregations, to extend our witness, and to respond to the needs of our neighbors. Wrong direction, Jared. See, I'm in charge of my own slides, so I can't blame anyone else. So when we looked at doing the apportionment, we tried a few things. We first looked at how much money we need. Looking at those figures, we needed about $1.5 million for a balanced budget when it came to apportionments. If we just used our legacy systems, we had about $200,000 shortfall that wasn't going to work, and obviously would have meant half of our parishes paying one way, half the other way, so that's not really sustainable as a singular diocese. We thought first about just doing a flat 10% model like Eastern did. That still left between $140,000 to $300,000 in shortfall, depending on whether or not we did not include your prior year's apportionment in the amount you paid. The legacy progressive model in Western would come closer to funding the budget. But the more we thought about that, we were concerned that progressive model still had a real burden on our smaller congregations. We are a church, a diocese, as we've heard many times over this convention, of smaller congregations. And we wanted to be sure that we're doing whatever we can to support those congregations in their life together. So we decided on a progressive tiered system starting at 8% for the smallest parishes. So the smallest parishes in our diocese no longer pay even a tithe of 10%. They start at 8%. From there, it increases $2,000 for each additional $100,000 of income that a parish has. The result is that our larger parishes do contribute a bit more. Smaller parishes receive some relief, as well as the diocesan port that increased funding from those larger parishes gives, so that they can do program and ministry with the support of our wonderful diocesan staff. The idea being similar to in society, we believe that those who are wealthy have a responsibility of helping to care for those who are struggling. We believe that same applies in our life as a diocese. Those who are blessed with resources, we have a responsibility for helping to support our congregations and our siblings of those congregations who may be struggling. This is the way it'll impact various parishes. Most parishes are going to see a reduction in your apportionment. Legacy Eastern parishes, 68% of you, your apportionment's going down in 2026 in this system. Legacy Western, 64% of you, your apportionment is going down in 2026, which, given the fact that we froze apportionments this year at your last year level, is kind of a significant reality that we're really excited for. Some parishes will see an increase, especially some of those larger Eastern parishes who were used to be on that flat 10% system, because obviously if you move from a flat system to a tiered system, those parishes that fall higher in the tier will see an increase because math. There is, though, in our canons, a rate break. According to the canons, no one's apportionment rate can ever increase by more than 2%. That's something that's put into the canons to ensure that no congregation would see a significant jump in any given year. That was our goal. The result of that is we have a bit more resources, as I said, that each legacy system had provided, but with that lighter burden on our smaller congregations. And this looks differently in different parts of our diocesan life. For smaller parishes, this apportionment provides for diocesan staff who can assist them. They get the assistance of clergy that have 20 years experience in ministry. They get administrative resources, help with outreach ministries and the work that they do there. Our more mid-sized congregations, this primarily shows up in vestry training, stewardship. How do you navigate growth as you're trying to make that happen? For our larger parishes that can probably survive on their own without a lot of diocesan help, they get to be a part of justice initiatives, specialized ministries, and they get to have an impact on the wider church by helping their resources go out to those struggling congregations. That's the apportionment. Do you have questions on the apportionment? I will say in my full report, as you're thinking about coming to the microphone, if you do have a question, you got to come to a microphone though, just so you be clear. If you do have, you can go to the report and you can go right to your parish. You can see what your apportionment will be in 2026. You can see how it's calculated. If it looks wrong or something seems weird to you, let Sarah or I know. For example, I had a rector come up to me, see my apportionment's going up $15,000. That seems like a big jump. I said, well, let's look at the spreadsheet. We looked at the spreadsheet. In 2023, his revenue was $650,000. In 2024, his revenue was $950,000. I said, well, your revenue went up 33%. So, or more than that, your revenue went up 50% almost. Yeah, right. So yeah, your apportionment did go up. He's like, oh, I think that we made an error in our parochial report. I said, well, you can always file a revision to your parochial report. But yeah, so do look at those numbers and make sure that they make sense to you. Ask me if you have questions and we'll suss out what that is. For example, some people's apportionment is going up, not actually because of the new system, but just because generally apportionments go up every year because inflation, your revenue is generally increasing each year, hopefully. And when you freeze 1 year, it's going to go up even more the second year, right? Because you got to catch up. So that's the reality. Not seeing anyone come to the microphone. Oh, we do. We got a question. I'm excited.
The chair recognizes the gentleman at microphone C.
Thank you. I actually did have a tithing joke I could have shared when we did the jokes, but I'm not going to do that now.
You need to introduce yourself, please, first.
Sorry. Ethan McDonald, lay delegate, Good Shepherd Allegan.
Thank you.
Ethan.
Absolutely. So you mentioned, Father Kramer, that our apportionments are part of our shared common mission and commitment in the diocese. That you mentioned, and I know anytime we talk about apportionments, that if we bring that back to the vestry or our parish as our report as delegates, people are going to go, "Oh God, they're changing apportionments. What's going to happen now?" And it sounds like for a congregation like ours, it's going to help us for the better. You mentioned that there's going to be a possible grant system being rolled out and helping to explain at the wider level how some of our funds can help different parish ministries. How would you like us to present this or approach this conversation, this proposed change, to our parishes to alleviate any possible worry about that?
That's a really good question. I appreciate that. I would say, for a lot of you, you're going to be go home telling your vestries that your apportionment's going down. I mean, that's for most of you, that's what that's a pretty easy message to say. For those of you in the other court, what I would say is that what we're trying to do, number one, is come up with a system that we believe is going to result in a thriving Episcopal Diocese of the Great Lakes. Before the pandemic, as we saw, 40% of our membership gone. 40% of the people in our pews gone. So if we just continue doing ministry, though we've always done ministry, that's not necessarily going to change anything. So we want to be sure that we're funding ourselves well, and that we're funding the diocese and our budget well, that we're providing those grants to congregations well. So that's what I would say, that number one, we're trying to have a healthy diocese that's going to foster thriving congregations. If you are one of those larger churches who is helping support the other churches, I think the analogy that I used is a helpful one. It's what I use with my vestry. I'm one of those larger churches. You said 6 churches in our diocese have an ASA of over 100. I'm in that category. In our vestry, we really believe in that. We know the smaller churches around us who are trying to make things work and make ends meet, and we consider our blessing. So what I like to do is put faces on it for people, right? Think of the smaller churches around you that your apportionment is helping to support, so that they can grow and thrive and do the important work that they're doing. That'd be my guess.
Oh, the chair recognizes the gentleman at microphone B.
Thank you. I'm Jonathan Bratt Carl, rector of 2 churches in Kentwood and Holy Trinity, Wyoming. My question. Day two. Still no keys. I hope they let me in the morning. So you'll let me in, right? Barb's nodding yes. So, question, 2-part question. Rolling out an ACH withdrawal system for apportionments. That's the topic. Question 1, is it mandatory? Question 2, if so, when? And will that be initiated by the diocesan office, or will we have to follow through?
Excellent questions. Number 1, no, it won't be mandatory, as far as I know. Number 2, when? How soon do you think we'll have that in place? Oh, it's ready. Yeah.
Now that convention's over, we've got it all set up. And all the signers are on board, so I just have to.
So it's all set up. All the signers are on board. So with great alacrity, I would say. Alacrity was our word, right? With great in a week or two, hopefully you'll be able to. Not required to, but able to. And when it's set up, the way it'll be set up is that I'm assuming, so Sarah, just hit me over my head if I'm wrong. I'm assuming that when it's set up, you say, I want to be on the system. We'll take what your apportionment is. We'll divide it by 12. We'll push a draw for that on some given day during the week that will probably tell you. I'm sure we'll tell them what they will do. Do you want to talk about this a little more since you're going to be doing it?
Sure.
Yeah.
So details. I'm so sorry. Excuse me. I'm shorter. What I will do is we will prepare your 26 apportionment letters. Assuming that this is approved, we will send that out with the new ACH information and instruction on how to do it. And my understanding with the bank is if you can do it one of two ways. You can give us your banking information and we can set up the withdrawal, or you can do it on your end, whichever way you want to do it. So we'll send out the information along with your letters. And then if there's questions, you can reach out to my office and we will walk you through it. That's okay.
All right. Recognize the gentleman at microphone A.
I'm Eric Carlson. I'm the chair of the budget committee at St. John's Midland. Woo! Yeah, you probably know why I'm up here. We are going to be experiencing an increase of more than $1,000 a month in our apportionment payments. I'm not up here to complain about that, but I have sort of a procedural question. You said that because the canons don't specify, and I'm partly responsible here on the Constitution and Canons Committee, so full disclosure, given that the canons don't specify a particular formula, my first part of my question is, does this mean that we're going to have potentially a different formula every year? And then the follow-up to that is there going to be some kind of procedure to request remediation? And the reason why I raised that is I said, I'm not objecting, not raising an objection about this year, but as I've been talking to lots of folks during the past day, and a lot of us are facing big building maintenance costs just because of the ages of our buildings. And there are going to be years when we have issues. And so I'd like to know if there's something built in to help with that.
Those are two great questions. Diocesan Council could, in theory, present a totally different system every single year. I doubt they're that crazy. Being on Diocesan Council, though, I'm not sure sometimes, right? If we are that crazy. We might be that crazy. My guess is it'll probably be generally a similar system each year. The canons left it open, but I would imagine just as a good board practice, we wouldn't want to be monkeying hugely with the apportionment in any given year. That's number one. Number two, we did, when we get to the budget, we doubled the amount that's available for apportionment reductions for people who cannot pay the apportionment that's assigned to them and need assistance. And we did that very intentionally, knowing that as we try to live into this, it'll take some churches time to get there. And we want to honor that reality. For those of you who are Legacy Western, you may remember when we moved to this system as well, it took a few years for us to live into it to a point where it was something that we could fund, that made sense to us, that worked in our parish budgets. And so we understand that a change like this will take a bit of time to live into. And as Diocesan Council, when we approved the budget, we really affirmed that we are going to be very enthusiastic when parishes come to us who are experiencing a big increase and they want to kind of mitigate that somewhat, approving those requests as much as possible as they come before council. That's super important to us.
Recognize microphone C.
Mary Maycumber, Holy Spirit, Belmont. I just have to stand here and say I'm so heartened by the fact that not only is our diocese, but our national church putting emphasis on the small churches. Yay. There are many of us here who are doing the good work every day and living our faith as best we can. I am excited to hear that there will be support in the way of staff, administration, and outreach help. I'm curious and wondering how we're going to find out about that help and where that will come from, because many of us want to keep doing the good work, but we have struggles. And so I'm speaking for all of us.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. I think the biggest thing that you'll get that help with is your diocesan liaison, the staff person assigned to your area. That when you're in your parish or trying to do something and you're like, I don't know what to do, call that person. And, whether it's an outreach system, whether you need help with a financial question, that person can ensure you get in touch with the diocesan resource that exists to enable you to do the work God's calling you to do. Yeah.
Microphone C.
Thank you. I'm Brother Armand Koss from St. Gregory's Abbey. I am here as a visitor. My question has 2 or 3 very brief pieces to it. My core question is, are there congregations, are there small parish churches that are struggling financially to the point where they are unable to pay their ordinary operating expenses, even if you reduce the apportionment to 0? And are they getting a reverse negative apportionment? Are they getting cash assistance from the diocese on a regular basis? And if so, I would be curious to know how many such parishes exist, and is that type of assistance, I'm asking, are there parishes that would literally be insolvent and forced to close if they didn't get a check from the diocese once per quarter or a couple times a year? And if so, how many? And is that amount, is it a line item in the budget, or is it in the financial statement somewhere?
That's a great question, brother. There are no parishes that exist in that world that they get a check quarterly from the diocese to enable them to be solvent. I just saw 4 people want to make a resolution to create that system, though. There are, though, what we have instead is we have a variety of grant systems instead of funding from the general fund budget, a variety of grant systems. And there are a lot. I mean, I'd be curious how, if your congregation receives in the past, 2 or 3 years, if you received some kind of grant from the diocese for ministry, could you stand up? Some kind of grant from the diocese for ministry in the past couple of years. Yeah, so these are parishes who have received money back from the, you can sit down, thank you for doing that, who have received money back from the diocese to do the work they do. And what we generally do for that is a grant system. The older system would have been like a mission system where a parish would be funded from the diocese. We haven't had a mission-funded congregations in our diocese for a while anymore. It's really a grant system. Thank you for that question. All right. Oh, we have one more.
Microphone C.
Hi, Ethan McDonald, Good Shepherd Allegan. This is, I'm just going to ask this as a quick one, and I know this might be unique to some congregations, but not all. We're a smaller parish, and a significant portion of our accounts are tied up restricted funds that were given by a parishioner years ago. They can't be touched, but they're supposed to be there for emergencies. We can never crack open them, and we don't get interest off them, but they're counted as a part of our budget for apportionments. Are there other parishes in the diocese that have that, and is that taken into account in the new system for apportionments? Because our operating budget is very small. So our apportionment, if it went up or down, that would help our daily budget. But if that's being based on the overall budget and a bunch of that we can't even use, is that going to be counted?
So there's 2 possibilities here. One thing is that you could be talking about funds that exist on your balance sheet that are donor restricted funds. Those don't factor into an apportionment calculation. Fund balances aren't where it comes from. The second would be that you're having income from those funds go into your general fund budget for some sort of purpose. That would factor into your apportionment, unless it's going to a couple areas that get excluded from the calculation. I will say those kind of detailed questions, and this is something we do experience with parishes. If you look at your budget or your balance sheet and you're thinking, this doesn't seem to be the most effective use of the funds that we have available, no matter what someone in the diocese, no matter what someone in your parish has told you can or cannot do, ask Sarah or ask me. Because a lot of times there are ways of using that stuff a little more effectively. And laws change all the time about rules about that. So feel free to reach out to us with your specific situation, because probably there's some better ways that we can help you figure out to use that.
Microphone C.
Hello, I'm Lynette from St. Philip's Episcopal in Grand Rapids. And And taller.
There you go.
Like that. All right.
You've got this, Lynette. Come on now.
Yes, this is Lynette from St. Philip's Episcopal, and I will be giving a report to the congregation after I get back. And I guess I wanted to, again, this has been brought up in different ways and different pieces, is, how to describe this to your congregation. And so one of the few remaining questions I had was, one, to confirm because I don't know how many people in our congregation even know currently how our apportionments are calculated. So saying it's the same as before might not mean a lot to some of the people, including myself. So I heard you say it's based on revenue. Is that correct?
Mhm.
So could you give just a quick summary of what's included in revenue?
Thanks. No. So the calculations, whoever filled out your supplemental report this year might remember, it is your operating revenue. So to the gentleman's point, your fund balances do not factor into your income for parochial or for apportionment purposes. It would be anything that goes into your accounts that you use for general operating. So where I think people get confused sometimes is if you pull out money from your investments and you use it to operate your church, that does factor in. If you pull it out for outreach purposes, we do not count that. But it's important how you fill out the form. So anything that you use for operations is what we count, and there's like 4 lines. And if you have questions about that, please call my office. I will walk you through what all of that means. I'm very happy to come talk to your vestries, answer questions, whatever we can do to help you all with that. That's what our office is here for. So did that answer your question? I know it's kind of vague, but without it right in front of me, but yeah.
I think that was enough.
Yeah. So basically keep in mind it's operations, count towards your apportionments, whatever you use for outreach or non-operating activities, we do not count. But if you think you've lumped some of those things incorrectly, let me know. We'll walk through your numbers.
And then one quick little add-on question is a donation in kind. Is that in the calculation anywhere?
Depends on how you're bringing it into your books and what you mean by in kind.
Okay, say you need a new roof and you happen to have somebody in your congregation that, owns a roofing business, and they say, okay, I'm going to drop off all your your roofing materials.
Gotcha.
And,
that's not an operating activity.
Okay.
Generally, that would be below your operating line. Yeah, he agrees with me. Good. So you would not report. So if you had like a capital campaign or somebody donated money to you or an in-kind for something like that, that's not your general normal operating. So you shouldn't report that on your procurator report as your operating income, and then we won't count it towards your apportionment because it's not an operating, it's a non-operating activity. Okay. It's a capital and a capital activities like that. Your heating bill is an operating. Fixing something in your building generally is a non-operating activity.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your excellent questions as you seek to understand and make sure we're all on the same page. Let's talk a little bit about the budget now, and then you'll be done with me, I promise. Our proposed budget seeks to align every dollar with our shared mission, which is strengthening congregation, supporting leaders, and extending Christ's love in our communities. We continue to practice careful stewardship. We want to keep our deficits minimal. I really believe the budget we're proposing to you invests in ministries that nurture faith, foster justice, and help every parish flourish. We have some strategic priorities as we went into the budget as a finance committee and diocesan council. We wanted to focus on support for small parish vitality and new ministry development. We wanted to be sure we were providing resources to train leaders and to do congregational development work. We wanted to ensure that we're funding justice and outreach initiatives. The world feels very broken right now. We want to be a diocese that's doing something in response to that brokenness. We wanted to ensure we're supporting youth and camp ministry because young people are not the future of our church. They are the today of our church. Well, of course, needing to restructure that somewhat as we're coming together as two dioceses to do it the most effectively and strategically. A few highlights I would draw for you from the budget. The budget income comes from our apportionment model we proposed to you, from our endowment draws, and also from a variety of designated funding resources. In Legacy Western, our endowment draw is 5%, which is a slight increase from last year, which was 4.5%. Legacy Eastern has always been at 5%. This is the last year that those draws are going to be different. Going forward, now we've consolidated our endowment funds. We're actually moving all of our endowments to the Episcopal Church Foundation, and that they'll be managed together as a singular thing. And for everyone on the endowment committee that had to go to 2 different endowment investment activity reports every quarter, they're very excited that they only have to do one now. It's very exciting. Our projected revenue as a diocese for next year is $3.24 million. That's almost a 10% increase over last year. If I was in my parish and my treasurer told me, I think we're going to have 10% more revenue next year, I would give him a hug and maybe buy him dinner. Safe church though, so just a hug and dinner. Our total expenses are down. You know, that's what you want to do if you've been in a deficit situation. You know, revenue up, expenses down is good. Total expenses, $3.31 million, 1.3% down from last year. We include in the budget in those expenses a 3% cost of living adjustment for all of our staff. We base that upon the Midwest CPIW as of the second quarter. That's what we do every single year so that we can do it far enough in advance. And that's a better inflation indicator than things like Social Security or other things that we've maybe used in the past because it's regionally adjusted. So it's really what's actually happening where we live. We've ended some things that don't really exist anymore. The Millennium Development Goals, if you've been in the church long enough, that was a big thing in the United Nations when I started as a priest, which was also when I had less gray hair. And so we're not funding something like that in the same way anymore. We do that work differently. A few things we reduced, things that were ministries, for example, that are really local ministries. Together West Michigan is a great ministry, but funding one local group out of a diocesan budget when probably one of you have a local organization in your community that does amazing work. It's really hard to not pick winners and losers when you do it from a diocesan budget. So we're trying to really shift those towards those grants instead. So that there's a really equalized way, an equitable way to determine what we're going to be funding locally. A Church Next, this is not Church Next as it relates to dismantling racism. That's funded differently. This was a program we tried last year where we said every parish in the diocese can use Church Next for your Sunday faith formation. No one did. Oh, some of you did, but not a lot of you. And so we don't need to spend $8,000 on something no one wants to do. Networking events, we thought it wouldn't be cool if we had some networking events to get together. And you all said, so it's fine. We don't need to do that anymore. We also did some increases. Plain Song Farm, cooperating ministry, we did a bump to. We did a bump to our social service networking grants, but not as much as either of them had asked because number one, we don't have unlimited money. Also, Plain Song Farm is a cooperating ministry. There's no agreement about how we fund them. That's going to be changing soon. Hopefully that'll help that. Social service networking grants, that's the only grant in the diocese that's funded from the operating budget. Most of our grants come from endowments or reserves, but that's from the operating budget. That's your apportionment. And so we wanted to be sure we were funding other priorities before we gave extra money away. Other highlights, we also had a budget town hall change. We restructured youth ministry to fund that camp program manager, but we also heard from you that we really felt Mackenzie still needed some part-time assistance for diocesan youth work, so we restored a single diocesan missioner into the budget. We have congregational development funding from endowments. Those applications for that, all of the grants, as I said, will hopefully be forthcoming. We created a new volunteer mileage reimbursement line. We're a big, I'll tell you what. So my wife came with me this year to convention, and as we're driving, she's like, this is a longer drive than it used to be. I'm like, this is a longer drive than it used to be. And if you're on a diocesan committee and you've been making those drives, you're like, this is a longer drive than it used to be. I'm getting through way more Audible books than I used to get through. And for a lot of clergy, they can submit for reimbursement for that from their parish budget. I do that when I do these sorts of things. But that can be a real a difficulty for our lay members on those commissions. And so we've had this a couple times before and no one's really used it. So I want to be really clear. If you're a lay person on a commission, we will reimburse your mileage. We will reimburse your mileage, not at the volunteer rate, but at the same rate that clergy are reimbursed, at the employee rate of 70 cents an hour. That's really important. Mile, not an hour. Good Lord. 70 cents a mile. Thank you, Alan. So please, yeah, talk to Sarah. Do I hear $1.50? So please do submit those in this coming year. And if you've talked to people who wanted to be on committees, but they've been anxious about that driving, let them know that exists, that we do that mileage reimbursement. That's super important. Yeah, Sarah's got a comment about that.
Just want to let you all know that my office will be sending information out about that, and the procedure for submitting that. We'll have a form and things, and so that'll be going out soon.
Great. Social service networking grants. Like I said, we didn't double it, but that's there as well. We talked about Plansong Farm. I left that in twice, last one too. Sorry. We talked about this earlier. We had nearly $90,000 in requests for campus ministry grants, including $20,000 for Canterbury MSU. That is so wonderful. That's so beautiful. We need to do campus ministry. I'm a product of campus ministry. That's why I came into the Episcopal Church. I was a college student who sang in a choir. And so if you don't like, maybe you don't like campus ministry now, I just realized. Don't use me as the only example though. But the difficulty is that we don't have a diocesan strategy for how we decide of the numerous colleges and universities in our diocese, which parishes are we going to give money to? So rather than just kind of picking the ones that we kind of liked or didn't like, what we said is that rather than funding from the diocesan budget right now, that this fits better into those grants. So either a congregational development grant, a social service networking grant, all of those grants are going to be rolling out for 2026. That's the best way to fund those, because that way everyone in the diocese gets a chance, not just the person who happened to think, ooh, I'll submit a budget request. Everyone gets a chance to apply, to make their argument, and there can be some kind of equitable division of those resources. I just said that right there. Yeah, so good point, Jared. Wrong way, Jared. There's a deficit. It's not as big as it used to be. It's a $68,000 deficit. That's of a pretty large budget. It's about 6% of our net assets. We figured that's a deficit we could absorb this year. There was a slight change to some of the budget numbers from pre-convention. We had a correction in how we booked Lily Grant expenses. That moved the budget, not hugely, but a little bit. And so that's why that number is a little bit different than the one you saw last time. We really believe this is reasonable because our deficit in 2025 was $390,000. And so this is 82% less than that. In 2025, we tried to keep as much as possible as it was to give us a year to kind of go and catch our breath, knowing that we couldn't do that forever going forward. So we are moving in the right direction as that goes. In conclusion, transparent, collaborative budgeting, good thing. We're investing in leadership, outreach, and formation. We have a sustainable structure built for long-term vitality. We have a strong foundation. We're improving our systems. We're doing a strategic use of our assets for mission. We're sharing our responsibility across parishes, recognizing that we all have different resources. And I'm confident that we are moving towards flourishing and growth for the Episcopal Diocese of the Great Lakes. Thank you. Questions on the budget?
Microphone B.
Michael Spencer, St. Thomas Battle Creek, and co-chair of the Bishop Search Committee. I noticed in the proposed budget that there are lines for the budget search, and they're all at zero. And I think it's going to cost a little money to do a bishop search. Can you say anything about that to us today?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that. We have a lot. The way you want to look for that is not on the budget. You want to look on the balance sheet. We have a fund called the Episcopate Transition Fund that has like 120, a lot of money in it that we have set aside in prior years in both dioceses for the transition. So that's a great example of something we're funding from the money we've set aside in a fund as opposed to needing to fund from the operating budget. Great question. Any other questions on the budget? I will say, just to be clear, when we all consider the budget, you are considering the budget and the apportionment at one time. It's going to be a single, you're not voting on the apportionment and then the budget, because if you don't fund one, we can't do the other. So it's going to be a singular vote when we get there. So make sure you're asking the questions you have now while you still can.
Microphone A.
Brian Coleman, Holy Trinity Manistee. Why wouldn't we move funds into the budget for those search expenses and out of the accounts so that we can see what's, I mean, it seems less transparent than maybe it could be. Second question, in terms of our assets, if you know, where does that put us in the overall picture of the wider church? And third question, the amount budgeted for the diocesan bishop's salary, which I'm assuming isn't for this year, it will be for future, seems low. And I'm wondering, what is the range for diocesan bishop salaries? Does that include all compensation or just stipend? And where does that put us in the range of the wider church?
Sure, I'll try to catch each of those. And number one, we could in theory have an income line in the budget for what we're taking out of Episcopate transition and an expense line for what we fund, what we actually paid from it. That would be a way of doing it. The way that you'll see it next year when you look at the financials, though, is you'll see it on the balance sheet. The decrease in the Episcopate Transition Fund was the amount that we spent on it. So that's really a preference question about how you want to book it, whether you want to slide it into the general fund as well, or just let it come straight out of that. The other place you'll often see that in financials will be a consolidated fund activity report that would show all income and expense from all of your funds. So that's a common part of financials where you'll see those. It's just the general when you get to more details on. That was number one. Number two was the bishop what? Overall funds?
In comparison.
Oh yeah, that's right. We have about $27 million in assets. I have no idea how that compares to other dioceses. That's not a study I've done, so I can't answer that one. I'm sorry. The third one was the bishop salary question. There's not a line in the budget for bishop salary for next year. There was a line for the previous year when we thought we might be able to have a full-time bishop, assisting bishop, and we just couldn't find one. That was budgeted in at $150,000. In terms of how that compares, the Episcopate salary report, the most recent one that I saw, that's about right for dioceses of our style. There are two ways you can look at it. One is you can look at it as a regional grouping of, for example, dioceses in this Midwest area. Or you can look at it as dioceses of a similar economic reality. Dioceses in the Midwest area, we would be a little low, actually. But that's also because a lot of the dioceses in the Midwest area, there's a few of them that have a lot of endowment money, so they can fund a little more aggressively. When you look at what's in the Episcopate compensation survey, which is all public, I can send you the link if you want it. What I think what we fit best as is what's known as old industrial, which are states that used to have a lot of industry activity but don't anymore. We're right about where those are. What those would be as of previous compensation reports. Going forward for calling the next bishop, we haven't decided on what that compensation level would be. That would be something that you would see in the financial reporting for next convention when we have a proposed budget for 2027 was where that would come in. Did I hit it all, Brian? Awesome.
Microphone B.
First of all, let me just thank you, Jared, and all the Finance Committee for all the work that you've done to put this budget together.
Can you introduce yourself, please?
I'm sorry. I'm Diane Steer. I'm the rector of St. John's, Mount Pleasant. Thank you. It can be a thankless job, and you've done a wonderful job of it. But of course, I have some things, not questions maybe, but comments. The other evening, I went to one of the pre-meetings about the budget, I think. And one of the things you said was, when you want to see what an organization values, look at its budget. And I did. And you said today that the budget included the things you looked at were emerging and new ministries and trying to prioritize ministry to young adults. And the budget says, and there's someplace else you have in bold, absent a strategic plan for campus ministry. There is no money in the budget for campus ministry, and you talked about that here. And those two things, those things, ideas, produce cognitive dissonance for me. on the one hand to say, we value this, and on the other, but you didn't do it the right way. So we didn't include it because we don't know what to do about that. And if you call it something else, then maybe we can find the funding, come over to this pot over here. But to come to this pot, I'm also going to be competing with other people who are not talking about young adults or emerging ministries to get the money out of this pot. And then it's going to be because I didn't stand on my right foot instead of my left. So I'm just saying that part of it I'm finding frustrating, to say this is what's valued, but it doesn't appear. And it's only if you ask it another way. We'll keep asking. I'm telling you, we'll keep asking. But it's a little bit difficult. So thank you.
Yeah, I think I just reiterate what I said earlier is that, I don't know how many colleges we have in our area, but to fund it from the diocesan budget, the finance committee didn't feel like they had the authority to decide which parish gets $20,000 to do a campus ministry. I like $20,000 for campus ministry. And so we felt like the best way to do that was through grant work, where everyone could have an equal opportunity for what you submit, because it's an important work to do. And we have grant money to do it, and we want to be sure we're doing it. We want to be sure it's equitable and accessible to all, not just in the budget process. And the other reason was that if we did include those $90,000 in campus ministry requests that were received, I'd either be giving you an increased apportionment report, or I'd be telling you that the deficit is $90,000 larger than it is, or we would not be funding other ministries that we are funding. And if any of you want to make that motion during convention because you believe that this is a value you hold, you could come to the floor of convention. You can move to increase the deficit, change the apportionment, or not fund ministry. Or you can't increase the deficit. Sorry, I lied. You can't increase the deficit, but you can move to not fund ministry or increase the apportionment if you think it's a value that we should be funding from the general fund budget instead of from designated funds. That's absolutely why we have a deliberative convention, to make those decisions, not just me or the committee or council. Other questions?
Microphone B, please.
Hi, I'm Carrie Heine. I'm from St. John's Sandpoint. I just have a question. You had said that you're trying to keep most of the expenses the same. I was just wondering about health insurance costs. Are they expected to raise, and how you plan for that in the budget?
That's a great question. We estimated about a 5% increase for health insurance costs, and that came about dead on for what they turned out to be this year from the church pension fund when those came out. About a 5% increase was what the rates shook out at, which is not sustainable long-term, right? Because that's more than inflation, so we still have work to do as a church, but that's where that shook out for next year.
Thank you
5%.
so much.
You're welcome.
Microphone C.
Hi, Ethan McDonald, Good Shepherd Allegan. I just wanted to say the new model around campus ministry makes sense to me as somebody who was in campus, led an Episcopal campus ministry for 4 years at my undergrad, and has seen how it's done provincially and in multiple different dioceses through talking with other young people. The idea of having that separate is really relieving to me, especially as I've been talking with a few other people here about asking the diocese to start a young adult ministry geared to people in their 20s and 30s, separate from campus ministry. Because just because young people are at college, that doesn't mean all of our 20 and 30s Episcopalians or 20 people who are in their 20s and 30s who are feeling a call to the Episcopal Church are in college. And so having that open, saying, hey, so-and-so wants to do a ministry, I want to reach out, I want money for young people, and saying, well, you're not a campus ministry, you don't get to do that. You have to compete with everybody else. You have made it fair. And it seems like in this proportionment, it's going to make it easier for campus ministries and young adult ministries separately to grow, expand, and shrink, because campus ministries will grow and shrink over time. If we are constantly funding a campus ministry that has 3 people in it when they used to have 70, or we have, hey, there's a thriving group of 20 and 30 somethings that are gathering. They need money to do stuff. They're doing it out of pocket, or they're asking a local church who might be giving them space to fund it. Now it's not fair to those congregations. So now by allowing them to individually ask for money as they need it, that's going to make things so much easier for us. And it's probably going to take, like you said, without having to raise the apportionment of parishes. And then we're not asking parishes to help. We can still, but now we can go to you for that. So thank you so much.
Not seeing any other questions, I'm supposed to do something, and there's this in the script here. Let me move this over. Share notes. One of them out nominating. We're not nominating anyone anymore.
You have to propose.
On behalf of the Diocesan Council, I move adoption of the proposed 2026 operating budget.
The 2026 operating budget has been moved for adoption. As a reminder, as per our canons, any motion to adjust the 2026 operating budget, including the apportionment income line item, must be either budget neutral or reduce the projected budget deficit. Is there any discussion? Seeing no more speakers, we move to voting. Would those in favor of approving the proposed 2026 operating budget, please raise your green cards. Those opposed, please raise your red cards. The motion adopting the 2026 diocesan operating budget has been approved. Thank you, Jared and Sarah, for your ministry leading the stewardship of our financial assets and for your report to this convention. We have a quick announcement from Alan.
Thank you. In the list of names of clergy who have died in the past year, you would have heard Deacon Nancy Casey Fulton's name mentioned. She was the retired deacon at St. John's Mount Pleasant who died just Tuesday of this week. So the vigil will be held at Clark Funeral Home in Mount Pleasant, 7 o'clock on Monday night. And the funeral service will be Tuesday at 11 a.m. at St. John's Mount Pleasant. So just so you are all aware of that, those who can attend or remember her and those who grieve this Tuesday.
We are going to take a 20-minute break. Please be back on time as we will begin debate on constitutions and canonical changes at 3:10 sharp.
Sam Morrison passed away? Retired. I think we recognized him when he first announced it. I seem to remember that because Sam worked at church camp when I was young, and so every time I see his name, I think about it. He once said to my mom, "Your children are perfect," and my mom laughed in his face. It's like, obviously, you haven't spent any time with my children. I think he was. There's not? What's the point?
Ellen. Oh, it's almost like a sitcom. Right in this good. This is a 5-minute warning to return to convention. Is Betsy Lawrence in the room? Dana Phillips is looking for you up here, Betsy.
We'll see. I have not heard. Usually I do constitutional or payment amendments and I get rumblings and questions.
All of the vibes are out. This joining circle, I promise if you want it, I can make a space in there for 20s, 30s, 40s, whatever area. He understands how to be connected now and also knows that all the things that he was talking about already exist. And then I have a great resource there. And he has my personal cell phone. So thank you.
I love it. I love it when
You're great. I told him to apply for the center and ministry thing. He stressed that their church didn't turn in their report last year. And I said, no one's paying attention to you. So just yep.
I guess like my son I was trying to say, we've been praying and studying for this for how long? 10 years?
Time to find your seats. We have 1 minute. Thank you. I know. Where are they getting those from? I mean, even Father Jed has those lollipops. The chair requests 5 lollipops. And you may be seated. The Lord be with you. All right. I'm not going to pray this time. Thank you, Jed. You are a hero. I call on the Chancellor of the Diocese, Bill Fleener, who serves as the chair of Constitution and Canons Committee, to present the proposed amendment to the constitutions and canons of the diocese. The proposed changes begin on page 90 of the convention handbook.
Thank you, Molly. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
It's my pleasure to serve as chair of the Constitution and Canons Committee, but I do not by any means do that work alone. I'm ably assisted by Jen Adams, Eric Carlson, Don Davidson, Ann Grady, Don Stocktel, and Joel Turmo, who have all worked hard to bring you what we think are really good additional touches to the Constitution and Canons that we passed at our first convention. So the first one, and I would say that we'll have stuff on the screen, but some of them are really hard to see. There's going to be small text, so I encourage you to look in the booklet if you want to see the language. The first two things we'll do are constitutional amendments. In order to amend our constitution, we have to pass identical language at 2 successive conventions. And at the second one, the vote has to be by orders, which means that the clergy and the lay people vote separately, and you have to get a majority in each. So we don't have to do that this time, but we have that to look forward to in 2026. If we pass it today, yes. The first one I want to offer on behalf of the committee is an amendment to Article 8 of the Constitution. This one, if you were here last year, you'll remember that the language about the relationship between parish congregational bylaws and the Constitution canons of the diocese and the Constitution canons of the wider church, the language wasn't as clear as it might have been. There were some attempts to amend it from the floor that did not go well. And so we tabled it and asked the Constitution and Canons Committee to come back with a new version. And that's what you have before you. It makes clear what the relationship is, that canons don't make bylaws go away, which it kind of sounded like in the other version, but they do. If there's a conflict between the two, it's clear canons and the Constitution prevail. On behalf of the Constitution and Canons Committee, I move an amendment to Article 8 of the Constitution on a first reading.
So because this comes from the Constitution and Canons Committee, it does not require a second. And now we need discussion. Is there any discussion on this? All right. No discussion. So all in favor, please raise your green card. Opposed, please raise your red card. The motion passes.
Thank you. The second one is also something that when we wrote the original Constitution canons raised some concerns, but not here, as it happens with people at the wider church level. This has to do with the succession of episcopate authority. How's that for great language? If the bishop is not the bishop, or we don't have a bishop, who acts in their stead? The old language said in the absence, and people said that that could be interpreted if the bishop goes away for a weekend, the other bishops or the standing committee might take over, which is clearly not the intent. So the new language just says if there is none, if there is no bishop diocesan, then we have the other bishops. And if we have none of those, then the standing committee, when appropriate, becomes the ecclesiastical authority. On behalf of the Constitution and Canons Committee, I move amendment of Article 3 of the Constitution for a first reading.
Is there any discussion on this? We needed that clarification, Bill. Thank you. All right. All in favor, raise your green cards. Oh, there is. Okay. We have some discussion. The chair recognizes microphone C.
St. Luke's, Kalamazoo. I am a little bit confused by the idea of the bishop suffragan being in the line of ecclesiastical authority. That's kind of the point of a bishop suffragan, is that they're not. That they do the pastoral things, the laying on of hands and other things, but that we don't usually elect a suffragan with the idea that they might be the ecclesiastical authority. I thought it was usually the bishop diocesan, the bishop coadjutor, and then the standing committee. So could you give some clarification about that, please?
Sure.
Bishop Ann, are you still here? Thank you. Will you speak to this, my dear? Woo, woo, woo! Let's give our cheers for Bishop Ann.
Before she speaks, I would just note that this is the language that was in both legacy diocese constitution.
Funny story. Oh, Bishop Ann Hodges Couple, bishop assisting the great diocese of the Great Lakes. So at my consecration back in 2013, I was about to sign the document, you sign your life away, and the secretary of the convention came up and said, you know, in the event of it probably said absence, in the event that there is no bishop, the bishop suffragan may become the ecclesiastical authority. That is true in many dioceses, but not all dioceses. And in fact, I would submit in the interim between one bishop and another, which I might know a little bit about. So Bishop Curry was robbed from the Diocese of North Carolina. I was the abandoned bishop suffragan of North Carolina. And so pastorally, I would say it was kind of nice. The standing committee didn't have to do it, but I was asked and I accepted to become the ecclesiastical authority for the 2 years between when we then called the new, and I knew my calling was to be a bishop suffragan, stayed in that lane. So, think of a world of overlaps, of well-defined overlaps. And I think in the case of this, in my opinion, it worked out really well, but you might need to ask others if that was really the case. But it does happen. It's in the canons, and I found it to be a successful way to bridge a gap pastorally when you were in a transition period. So thank you.
Thank you, Bishop Ann. Is there any more discussion on this? Microphone C.
Ethan McDonald, Good Shepherd. I just have a quick question about this. National canons for some things state that only the bishop, not the people with not whatever is designated as ecclesiastical authority, can make certain decisions on some things. Will this assist that? The reason I ask is one of my friends wanted to join one of our designated orders as a member of this diocese, and was told no because we don't have a bishop, not because the ecclesiastical authority was in it was because the ecclesiastical authority was in the standing committee, not in a bishop.
So the existing language and the continuing into the amended language says that the ecclesiastical authority goes to the standing committee only for those things that aren't pastoral on behalf of the bishop. So standing committees can't ordain people. They aren't involved in Title IV and those things. So a diocese that does not have a bishop and the standing committee is the ecclesiastical authority, which we have some experience with, will work with a neighboring or other bishop to fill those roles.
All right, as I see no more discussion, Would you vote? If you would like to vote yes on this, would you please raise your green cards? Vote no, please raise your red cards. The motion passes.
The next one is the first canon amendment. It's an amendment to canon 1.3.4. It's about the sale of church property. And upon reflection from the original language, the committee thought that we had not included something that was true, at least in one of the, maybe both of the legacy dioceses. And that's that if a parish wishes to sell property, they must have a majority vote of a congregational meeting, an annual meeting or a special meeting. So the vestry and the priest or clergy aren't doing that alone. We think that's good stewardship of our assets. It also adds some additional language that didn't exist before that clarifies what kinds of transactions are caught up by this canon. Alienation technically could be renting it. And if you really want to stretch it, could be renting it for a weekend for a wedding. Well, clearly that's not the kind of stuff you have to come to the standing committee for. So we hope that that language at the end there clarifies that we're really talking about long-term whole rentals or sales. And you would need standing committee approval for those after the vestry and the parish or congregation vote.
The chair recognizes microphone A.
Brian Coleman, Manistee, can you give a legal definition of real property, please?
Real property is real estate. Buildings, not personal property, not chalices. Real property is land and buildings and things attached to them.
Any more discussion on that? Seeing no more discussion, I ask that everybody in favor of this change raise their green cards. Oh, you didn't move it. Sorry, Bill didn't move it. Oh, my goodness.
We did discussion before I moved it. I
Yep.
apologize.
No,
Madam
it's
Chair.
me. Sorry.
On
No, it's
behalf
me.
of the Constitution Canons Committee, I move amendment to canon 1.3.4.
All right. And now, will you raise your green cards if you're in favor? Red cards opposed? The motion passes.
The next constitutional amendment is an amendment to canon 1.11.1. And this is an oversight. We were working with the canons on seasonal chapels when we wrote the canons and constitution for our new diocese, and wrote what we thought would work, that if you don't meet year round, you're a seasonal chapel. I was not aware and have since been made well aware that there are some parishes who meet not all year round. They close down for a month or maybe a little bit more, a couple weeks in the winter for obvious reasons in Michigan. It was never our intent to disenfranchise them or make them seasonal chapels against their will. They are clearly congregations of the diocese in full union. And so we have clearer language that makes it clear that the 4 seasonal chapels that we do have meet less than 6 months a year. Anybody else who closes for some small amount of time during the year is not caught up in this definition. On behalf of the Constitution Canons Committee, I move amendment to canon 1.11.1.
Any discussion on this? All right. Everyone in favor, please raise your green card. Opposed? The motion passes.
The next one is about appointing people for vacant positions, either elected positions or appointed positions in our diocese. As you heard during the elections, we've had a couple of those in the last year. It wasn't as clear as it could have been about how that's handled. We hope that this is more clear. And the basic process is for elected positions, the standing committee, as has always been the case in both dioceses, the standing committee appoints replacements, and that person serves until the next diocesan convention. So even if they're filling the person who had a 3-year term, that term comes up for election and gets put back before the body for election. We think elective offices ought to come out of this body, and we don't have somebody who's appointed for most of a 3-year term and they never have been elected by the diocese. And so that's what this does. It requires us to amend 2 sections of Canon 281. subsection C and E in order to perfect this process, but that's what the process does. And on behalf of the Constitution Canons Committee, I move amendments to Canon 11, or 2, 8, 1, C, and E.
Any discussion? All right.
I'm sorry, I would just add that a person appointed to an elected position who serves until convention can run for the remainder of that term when it's placed back before convention for election.
Thank you for that clarification. All in favor, please raise your green cards. All opposed? The motion passes.
Next one is an amendment to Canon 282E. This is the creation of a finance committee. Finance committees have existed in both of our dioceses forever. We did not have a canon in the new Constitution canons, specifically charging them and delineating their work and populating them. And so that's what we have now before you. On behalf of the Constitution Canons Committee, I move amendment to Canon 282E.
Any discussion? Seeing none, I ask that you raise your green cards if you're in favor. Red cards opposed? The motion passes.
Next one is an amendment to Canon 254B. And this is another oversight. And we wrote canons process that took several years. It may seem like a lot that we're having to fine tune, but I personally am really happy that this is the low number we have to fix a gargantuan project that we took on over the previous 2 years. This canon has to do with the nomination committee and the nomination deadline. We did not have a deadline for nominations for convention in the canons. It also clears up the nomination process. There have been questions about what the duties of the nominating committee are. Yeah, that's singular. If someone's nominated, is the nominating committee acting as a screening process? Like, man, we don't think that person would be good. But that's not their point. Their point is to assure that people are qualified for the offices, means they've been trained and they're communicants and that fun stuff. And so nominations, either self-nominations or nominations from a third party, those get placed on the ballot if they meet the qualifications. We also give them authority they already kind of have under the canons, but make it clear here that they can seek out additional nominees either to fill out slates or to work toward our canonical goal of having underrepresented groups racially, geographically, whatever, be in our elected offices. So this canon would clarify that and put in a date when nominations are due. And on behalf of the Constitution Canons Committee, I move amendment of Canon 254B.
All in favor, raise your green cards. Well, was there any discussion? I didn't see anybody. All right, red cards if you are opposed. The motion passes.
And the last one is amendments to 3 separate canons, 1.11, 1.7, and 1.8. You may remember when your Constitution Canons Committee came to you last year with new Constitution and canons, we said, we don't like 1.7 and 1.8. We're not happy with it. It existed in Legacy Western and exists in a lot of other canons across the church. But we don't think it really speaks to a process the way we would speak to a process. And so we asked permission to come back to you this year with an amended version, and that's what we have. So as we began that work, we started out with, all right, if we're going to talk about how we're going to deal with congregations who might be struggling and talk about congregational vitality, we've put some of that already in 1.11. The very beginning of our canons has a list of what we think it means to be an Episcopal church in our diocese. And as we looked at that list, we realized it wasn't inclusive enough, that there were some additional things that we wanted included in that list as the starting base for talking about how to get parishes to the places they want to be. And so the first amendment, 1.11, is some additions to that list that we think better represent who what we expect, who we think we are as parishes and congregations in the Diocese of the Great Lakes. The other two deal with, so the old canon in this place was fairly punitive. It allowed the bishop a lot of authority to come in and replace vestry members and a whole variety of other things. It wasn't collegial, it wasn't cooperative, it wasn't kind of uplifting, and that's why we didn't love it. We hope that this is better. We do think that the canon needs a way for parishes who are struggling for whatever reason to head in the right direction, and we also think needs to be a process for parishes that are struggling and either not or refusing to recognize it to have that suggested to them. And so that's what we have. We have Canon 1.7, which sets out a process for a plan of action and a support team to help them, again, meet those kind of expectations of what a congregation in the Diocese of the Great Lakes looks like. And there's lots of detail in there, including some reporting and things like that. But it's it's getting them aware of the resources that are available in the diocese to meet who they are and a whole variety of other things. So that process is in 1.7. And then 1.8 addresses the possibility of a closure of a parish. Like 1.7, there are two approaches. One, congregation recognizes itself in 1.7 the need for a plan and a support team, and in 1.8 the need to closure, or that's suggested to them by the bishop. In 1.7, the bishop would form a support team and a plan, and in 1.8, the bishop could begin a process, a fairly lengthy process, that would close the parish, ending with a vote at convention. There's some logic to that. When parishes, congregations begin their life in the diocese, they come here and are recognized as being in union with us at convention, and so leaving the diocese might look similar. Obviously, I don't think that's going to happen very often. But we do think that there needs to be a mechanism for a parish that is not doing what they should do, that the bishop can step in and say, hey, we don't think you're an Episcopal church anymore, for whatever reason. So on behalf of the Constitution Canons Committee, I move the amendments to Canons 1.1.1, 1.7, and 1.8.
Discussion? All right, you have 3 minutes.
Wait,
Oh,
sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
3 minutes. Chair recognizes microphone C.
Jim Barra, Rector, Grace Episcopal Church. Just clarifying, we're voting for all three of the canonical changes with one discussion?
Yes.
Yes, the Canons Committee thought they were interrelated enough that we could vote for them together. It is certainly possible under Robert's rules to divide them if somebody wanted to do that, but that's what the committee's position was. As we did with the appointing and elections thing, those canons relate enough that we put them in one motion.
All right, I'll sit down for a minute. Thank you.
Microphone B.
Alicia Hager, Emmanuel Hastings. I rise to speak against the amendment for two reasons. Current practice and current canon states that proceeds from closed parishes comes to the diocese for general missionary work, is what it says. It's been the practice of diocesan council to put 10% of those proceeds into an Indigenous needs fund and the other into a congregational development fund. The new canon, as it's laid out, simply states that the funds will be transferred to the diocese. It doesn't give that provision. I also think it's a mistake to remove ecclesiastical authority from the bishop while we don't have a bishop, because if we take this away, we will never, ever, ever give it back. The current climate that we live inside of means that something strange, crazy, and unforeseen could happen where a parish needs to be closed before the next diocesan convention. Thank you.
Yes. Bill asks to speak to this.
So the provision that the assets of the closed congregation cede to the diocese It's not limit what council does with those when they received them in any way.
The chair recognizes microphone C.
Randall Warren, St. Luke's, Kalamazoo. As the rector of a congregation that was subjected to the old canons process, I rise in favor of this amendment. In the old process, our money was taken from us and half of it was given away against our will. In the old process, we were held accountable and restricted, and no one clearly communicated to the congregation why that was happening. When I arrived at the congregation, I went through reams and files of paperwork to finally write out in a clear step-by-step fashion what decisions were made about us. And when I presented that to the congregation, people were shocked. They didn't know that. So the old canons were not effective, and sometimes they did a thing that bishops shouldn't do, and most bishops don't want to do, which was putting all of the parish funds in the hand and control of just the bishop. And that puts the bishop out on a very dangerous limb. So I am very much in favor of this revision, having experienced the fallout from not well-written previous canons.
Microphone A.
Jared Kramer, St. John's, Grand Haven. I rise in support of this amendment. I think it's good. I would just have one suggestion, knowing that everything's a work in progress. As I understand this current canon, if a congregation is unwilling to cooperate with the plan, the only other option that exists to do anything is the closure of the congregation. There's no other canonical step that the bishop could take if a congregation is in a state of deep conflict, deep distress, and is not wanting to cooperate. And I don't know what, I agree with Randall. The old way was definitely not the way, but I wonder if there is some other canonical steps that could be thought of in the future for future consideration, just to ensure that we're doing the best to help congregations that are struggling and not just having closures the only extra option that exists when they don't cooperate. Thank you.
Yes, Bill would like to respond to that.
So part of what we attempted to do was to move those kind of steps out of canons to increase flexibility. I don't think there's any reason that a plan can't have any number of innovations around what's happening in the parish. And so I think that the other steps are only limited by people's imagination and using a support team and a plan, not by the canons. And writing additional steps into the canons didn't seem useful to us or collaborative or universal enough.
Microphone A.
Hi, Barrett Lee, St. Mark's Coldwater. I rise in neither support or against, but with a question pertaining to Father Randall's speaking, although I'm addressing to you, perhaps he could be invited to address further, but how does the new language rectify the problems that parishes like St. Luke's had under the previous canon?
So the previous canon basically allowed the bishop to come in and take over a parish. They could supplant the vestry and run it kind of as a mission, for those of you who've been around for a long time. The new canon leaves the process in the hands of the people in those congregations. They're going to get some help. They're going to get some suggestions about what to do and how to do it. But they don't lose autonomy in the process, and that's clearly what's had happened in a couple of congregations under the old canons.
Microphone C.
Jim Barra, Grace again. Yeah, so following on what Randall was saying, I couldn't help but notice that all of the criteria for concern are subjective, and that concerns me because depending on the wherewithal, size, makeup of a congregation, there may not be the knowledge base necessary to know, are we invading our funds? Do we have a thriving mission? Do we this? Do we that? And on the other end is that because it's subjective, that does mean that certain authorities of the church then have the capability of saying that we think you're doing this without necessarily there being a standardized criteria. And so that's, I was really pleased with what Bishop Rose said about these things being all iterative. The other thing that I wanted to just sort of name in terms of trying to make this more collegial is that in many dioceses, they have specific task forces that go before there's sort of a bishop or an imperilment or anything that first triggered event is that people who kind of know about this show up to help a congregation. And I think that is, I think one of the things we're really working on is building trust and having steps that happen canonically before anything that feels invasive or punitive. And then my last thing is every time I see church providing the services of a clergy, I get a little queasy and it's wonky and it's a little theo-ecclesial, but that's not enough for me because clergy aren't employed, so to speak, by a congregation as an employee in this tradition. In our tradition, clergy work alongside the laity. And I really don't like that language because to me, what I'm hearing is if you can find someone to stand behind the altar on a Sunday and then leave, that's adequate. And so anyway, that's all I have to say. Thanks. Bye.
Microphone C. That's you. Yes.
Better?
Yes.
Okay. Lynette again from St. Philip's Episcopal. And I mostly have a clarification question on Canon 7, Section 2, when a church reaches an at-risk status or is assigned an at-risk status. It says conveyance, under C, it says conveyance of title of all property to the diocese. Does that give the diocese the ability to sell property during this time when the congregation is determined to be at risk?
I'm talking about Canon 8.
8 to.
Okay.
She's on 7? Where?
That's in the, that's in the old one, I
Oh.
believe. So
Yeah.
that has been removed from
Yes.
the new one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the only time the diocese would take over congregational property would be at the end of a closure process, either initiated by the members of the congregation or initiated by the bishop through standing committee and convention.
Okay, so that will not be happening in the new one. Okay, thank you.
Microphone A.
Freya Gilbert, St. Paul, St. Joseph. My question was regarding, I believe, Canon I 1.1, the omission of line F in the original canon, which said something to the effect of ensures members who by diocesan policy are required to take Safe Church, dismantling racism, do so. I question the removal of that line item. I think it's so important that each of us that are required to do take Safe Church and dismantling racism, and I'd like to see some teeth on that.
The requirement still exists, it's just rearranged a little bit. We did some editing to those provisions, but we did not remove that requirement.
Okay.
It's now an E.
Microphone C.
Hi, Ethan McDonald, Good Shepherd in Allegan. I have a question it's a question or a concern about the proposed expectations of congregational vitality. As somebody before me said, a lot of these are it could be fairly subjective, but the one that's really concerning to me, looking at the demographics of the church as a whole and of our diocese, is that proposed option F is that that congregations be financially self-supporting, pay all their operating expenses. That makes sense. But the fact that it would rely mainly on the free will offering of their members and their resources for its core financial support could be possibly challenging in several years' time. And I say that as it was said before earlier, that the young adults in our youth are the today of the church. They're not exactly the future. And for some of us who are in college, young adults working, have young families, etc., we can't always give a full tithe. I said this in our stewardship Sunday talks a couple days ago, or last week. And for me, that's concerning because if we had 5 people from our congregation on their bus to convention or something, and it went off a cliff and they all died, there goes a bunch of our core givers. Meanwhile, the rest of us young people who aren't giving financially but are giving in other ways are stuck, because now the church operating expenses are going to rely on interest from endowments and other money and other donations and other grants that we have. And most of those general expenses for a time could not be coming from free will offerings, but from other sources of income. And so I'm a little concerned at that language, simply because it excludes that one generation. And then secondly, if you have a church where there's a lot of homeless or people who are just struggling financially, that is otherwise doing everything that it should as a congregation, but because they're not getting enough free will offerings, that's an excuse to close a church. That's just concerning to me. So clarification on that, or maybe some possible reconsider
I
of
think the
that
position of the
language.
committee was looking at the young people in our church and assuring that the endowments that were put in place for the continued existence of those parish congregations would continue beyond the current generation. What we're seeing now is those endowments that have been built over time are being quickly, in some places, dwindled down to nothing by the current inhabitants, leaving nothing for future generations. And so I think you can look at it both ways, but we thought we were being good stewards for the next generation by having this kind of a limitation, so that all of the funds aren't expended to maintain the current generation and there's nothing left for the future generation.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Microphone A.
John Huskin from St. Christopher's, Northport. We rent our space, so we really have no property other than our assets, for instance, CDs and all those, that type of stuff. So if you tell us we have to close our church, what happens to that asset? Do you claim it, or?
So if a church closes, we're talking about the church, the people and the entity that is St. Swithin's in the Swamp closes, and the assets, real property or other, are ceded, because all parishes hold all assets in trust for the diocese. If the parish congregation ceases to exist, those are ceded to the diocese. So we're not just talking about buildings, all the assets, but we're not. This isn't a discussion about closing buildings. This is a discussion about closing congregations if and when it's needed. Either they decide that they're no longer going to maintain themselves and continue, or the diocese as a whole decides that that's the appropriate answer. Does that answer your question? You still
So you take it all away?
You don't own it. All the assets that you received as a congregation or any parish in the Episcopal Church is held in trust for the diocese. That's what our canons say. So if you cease to exist, those assets cede to the diocese.
Okay, I'll have to let them know.
Microphone A. It's totally the way it is. Yeah.
Alex Quick from St. Andrews Episcopal in Grand Rapids. I'd like to move the question.
We need a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. But, yeah. All right, Kay. All in favor? Aye. Well, please raise your green cards. All in favor? All right. If you disagree, please raise your red card. All right, the motion passes. Oh, sorry, what? To close the question. Call the question. Now we need to vote on the motion. So All in favor of moving this, please raise your green card. All opposed, please raise your red card. All right, the motion passes.
That completes my report, Madam Chair.
Let's give Bill a hand. Thank you so much, Bill, for all of your work on constitutions and canons and everyone. I call on the Reverend Kay Houck and the Reverend Nancy Mayhew, co-chairs of the Resolutions Committee, to present the committee's one resolution. The resolution can be found on page 102 of the Convention Handbook.
Resolution R1 is proposed by the Reverend Linda Shearer of St. Gregory's, Muskegon. If adopted, R1 would establish a requirement for deacons to be given an honorarium and thereby enable deacons to have access to the church pension group's non-financial offering.
On behalf of the Resolutions Committee, we move the adoption of Resolution R-1.
Is there any discussion? Microphone A.
Jared Kramer, St. John's, Grand Haven. To be sure I'm understanding the resolution properly, it requests that congregations do this, and so this is not a mandated thing for congregation to be required to do. It's not being written as diocesan policy. It's not going to our compensation standards. It's just saying, as convention, we request congregations do this sort of activity. Just clarification.
Correct.
Thank you.
Microphone C.
Liz Kinsey, St. John Sturgis. I find this resolution, I have difficulty with this resolution, and I rise against it because deacons belong to the diocese, not to the individual parishes. And also listening to the conversation and knowing about small parishes in our diocese that are struggling, it puts an extra burden on them. Thank you.
Microphone B.
Jonathan Brack Carl, Rector, Two Churches, Holy Trinity. It says all active deacons. Does that include transitional deacons?
It does not, no.
Well, that might want to be clarified because I was very active at St. John's.
Microphone A.
Deacon Beck LeClaire of the Ensemble Inclusion Center. I'm rising in support mainly because since this is a request, that also means that there is the possibility of mechanisms by which either a bishop or an archdeacon or perhaps a standing committee could create another mechanism by which the roughly $32 a month could be provided to a deacon to ensure that they have access to these CPG benefits. I'm one of very, very few deacons under 45, approximately 1%. So I'm extremely aware of the structural inequality around the diaconate. And I, in fact, have more or less created for myself the opportunity for me to have access to CPG benefits through becoming a ministry developer. However, I also recognize that not all deacons necessarily have that kind of call. They're often and usually called to some kind of bivocational ministry where they're doing work outside the church. If there's an impediment for a particular parish to access this kind of finances, I'm sure that a bishop or an archdeacon could find it in a discretionary fund to make it happen.
Microphone C.
Ellen Schrader, Grace Traverse City. I'm not clear under the resolve section of this resolution what exactly is being asked for. There's a minimum number of hours that you have to work in order to qualify for benefits. It's not necessarily a dollar amount. And so I'm not sure what $25 a month actually does. And I would love to hear from the resolution's authors about more detail about that. Thank you.
I see Linda moving to a microphone, but on behalf of the Resolutions Committee, what we can say about that is that this is an honorarium. So it's not based on number of hours, and $25 is the minimum amount required by church pension fund to give deacons access to the many benefits that are beyond the pension itself.
I call on microphone B.
Diane Steer, St. John's, Mount Pleasant. I speak in support of this resolution. This is a minuscule amount that we're talking about in order to give our deacons access to things that other folks take for granted, perhaps. I think it's a justice question for me, and it's taken us far too long to get to this. And I think there are even bigger justice questions for us to consider, perhaps, regarding the whole ministry of the diaconate. But for now, I speak in support of this resolution. Thank you.
Microphone A, Sarah.
Thank you. I just wanted to potentially help with the answer.
Can you introduce yourself,
I'm so
please?
sorry. Sarah Philo, CFO for the diocese. Regarding the benefits question, the delegate was correct. At that minimum amount, benefits, medical, those types of things wouldn't be available. But what this does is it allows the deacon to be able to join CPG's system and get other benefits that otherwise would not be available to them. Entry into the pension plan, credo, various other things that I agree with what some of the other have said, that it's a justice issue they don't have access to, but it opens that door for them. And so that's, in the benefit world, correct, the benefits wouldn't be available, but a lot of other things would be.
Microphone C.
Marilee Roth from the Church of the Mediator. I just would like to have it clarified that even though it's being called an honorarium, it cannot be paid as a 1099. There are payroll ramifications. This has to be paid through the payroll to trigger the pension. And I just want that clarified.
Microphone C.
Jim Para, Grace Traverse City. On behalf of everyone here who does not have an understanding of what the ancillary benefits are, could someone smarter than me just give a quick top 5 of the benefits that will be opened up? Because I rise firmly in support of this, but I think a lot of people here don't quite know what the non-financial things are.
Thank you, Jim. Access to professional financial planning and investment vehicles, retirement income replacement based on years of service, possible disability benefits, life insurance, option to participate in retirement savings plan.
Thank you. And credo.
And credo.
All right. Seeing that there is no more discussion. You've already moved, right? All right. All in favor, will you please raise your green cards? All opposed, your red cards. The motion passes. The chair calls on the delegate at microphone A.
I'm Jared Kramer from St. John's, Grand Haven. And in light of a pressing issue in our society of paramount importance for human rights and human dignity, which requires a timely response and witness of the church, I move to suspend the rules for consideration of a resolution that has been pre-filed with the secretary and does not meet the canonical requirement of Canon 2.5.3.p. that resolutions be submitted no later than 60 days prior to convention. The resolution bears the names of 36 delegates to this convention, of which 20 are clergy and 16 are laity.
And
Second?
a motion to suspend the rules has been made. It is not debatable. If 2/3 of you vote in favor of it, the movement will be allowed to put before you the resolution that was not presented in time to meet the requirements of the canon.
So we are voting to suspend the rules of order. Those voting to suspend the rules, please raise your green cards. Those opposed to suspending the rules of order, please raise your red cards. The motion carries. Your vote to suspend rules is successful. You may present your motion.
I present a resolution on sanctuary support for immigrants and refugees. Whereas that this second convention of the Episcopal Diocese of the Great Lakes affirms our baptismal promises to seek and serve Christ in all persons, to strive for justice and peace among all people, and to respect the dignity of every human being. And whereas this diocese, guided by our organizing principle, we are called to embody the love of Jesus Christ with grace, hope, and joy, seeks to live out that calling by collaborating creatively to nurture deep and lifelong spiritual growth, build up vibrant and inclusive worshiping communities, respond compassionately to the needs of our neighbors, and honor and care for our creation. And whereas that this commitment to embody Christ's love compels us to stand with those most vulnerable to systems of injustice and to act when dignity is threatened. And whereas that this diocese recalls with grief the tragic echoes of history in our present moment, the slaughter and forced removal of indigenous people from their ancestral lands, the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II, the rise of authoritarian regimes such as Nazi Germany, Stalinist Russia, fascist Italy, and more recent dictatorships in Chile, Argentina, and elsewhere, and other times when fear and unchecked power led to mass violations of human dignity, echoing the prophetic warnings against trusting in oppressive rulers. And whereas this diocese expresses deep concern about the rise of an authoritarian spirit in our own time, where masked agents and officers, often refusing to identify themselves, act with apparent impunity in disregard for the constitutional rights that belong to every person on American soil, particularly remembering that Scripture commands, "You shall not oppress a resident alien. You shall love the alien as yourself, for you were aliens in the land of Egypt." Therefore, be it resolved that this diocese echoes the numerous calls of the General Convention of the Episcopal Church to stand in solidarity with immigrants and refugees and all those threatened by detention or deportation by immigration and customs enforcement, following the command of Christ our Lord, who as a child fled into Egypt as a refugee. And be it further resolved that we affirm the migration with dignity principles articulated by the General Convention of our church, insisting that dignity is not just a word, but rather a framework of principles, declaring that all migrants have a universal right of movement, including freedom to leave and return to one's country of origin, freedom of movement within one's country of origin or settlement, the right to be secure from sexual violence, including rape and sexual exploitation, human trafficking, slavery, forced labor, and arbitrary and abusive detention, the right of equality to include equal treatment with no discrimination under the law based on color, gender, sexual orientation, language, religion, political affiliation, national origin, and equal opportunity for upward mobility, rights to a basic quality of life, including employment rights, housing rights, and food rights, the right to access services such as healthcare, education, and legal representation, civil and political rights guaranteeing the right to identify, to use one's language, and freedom of speech and religion. And be it further resolved that congregations in this diocese are urged prayerfully to discern and, as appropriate, to engage in a range of sanctuary ministries and actions to serve and stand with immigrants who currently live under threat, which may include providing supporting legal assistance for those navigating immigration proceedings, offering accompaniment to court hearings, ICE check-ins, and related appointments, offering physical sanctuary or emergency housing for individuals and families under threat of detention or deportation, joining in nonviolent action and advocacy and coalition building with immigrant rights groups and other sanctuary communities to resist unjust immigration policies and practices, and to ensure the safety and security of undocumented neighbors, And be it further resolved that this diocese recognizes and affirms the recent unanimous decision of St. John's Episcopal Church, Grand Haven, to become a sanctuary church as a faithful expression of baptismal promises, and invites other congregations to discern how God may be calling them to stand in similar solidarity with immigrants and refugees. And be it further resolved that diocesan leaders and congregations are encouraged to partner with ecumenical and interfaith allies, local immigrant-led organizations, and regional sanctuary networks to maximize the effectiveness of these ministries. And be it further resolved that diocesan leadership shall equip congregations, clergy, and lay leaders with resources and training to engage in sanctuary ministries appropriate to local context, capacity, and discernment, and shall maintain a diocesan resource list to assist in this work. And be it further resolved that acknowledging the current state of emergency for migrants and their families and the daunting challenges facing migration ministries across the church, we urge the presiding bishop, president of the House of Deputies, and the Executive Council of the Church to act now to establish the Task Force on Migration with Dignity as called for in the Migration with Dignity resolution, to inventory current assets and resources of the church for serving and supporting migrants, conduct a gap analysis to identify missing elements that could strengthen the church's response, recommend a church-wide strategy for supporting migrants and for information and resource sharing. And be it further resolved that we urge the presiding bishop, president of the House of Deputies, and Executive Council to act now to establish an annual Migration with Dignity Sunday for the Episcopal Church during the season of Epiphany, as called for in the Migration with Dignity resolution of our General Convention. And be it further resolved that this diocese commits to lifting up the stories of immigrant neighbors in our congregations, to educating our members about the realities of detention and deportation, and to grounding all our actions in prayer, worship, and the liberating love of Jesus Christ, who came to proclaim release to the captives and to let the oppressed go free. And be it further resolved that this convention directs that the Secretary of Convention send copies of this resolution to the presiding bishop, the president of the House of Deputies, and the Executive Council of the Church, so that they may know of our commitments with regard to these issues and our desire to see action taken by our church at such a time as this. If I could.
Second. No applause, please.
If I could speak briefly to the resolution.
It has been seconded, just a minute, by the Reverend Barrett Lee. And, all right, microphone C first. Oh, Jared goes first? Okay, Jared, you go first.
Thanks. I'll just speak briefly to say I apologize for getting choked up. For a few different years, some of you got to know a woman named Yolanda Pineda, who was a delegate to this convention. We were the Diocese of Western Michigan, and who was not documented, and who was a faithful part of this church, and who self-deported with her daughter so that she wouldn't be deported, who left behind her youngest daughter, Daisy, who's in her early 20s and now lives alone. Daisy, who travels from Grand Haven to work from Holland, carrying her passport and birth certificate for fear of being picked up. I offered this for them.
Recognize microphone C.
Hello, I'm Avery Sears from Emmanuel Episcopal in Petoskey, and I'm a youth delegate this year, standing in support of this resolution. It is extremely easy to ignore a problem when you don't see it. I'm confident that we have all heard the phrase out of sight, out of mind, but this problem is not out of sight at all. In fact, it's in our backyard, and I'm standing here asking you to take a stand on this prevalent issue. Recognizing a problem so large and choosing to do nothing is willful ignorance by definition. The ability to vote on this matter is an opportunity to stand with our siblings in Christ. As Episcopalians, we like to talk about loving our neighbor, but this is an opportunity to show that through our actions. Thank you.
Microphone C.
Heather Barta, serving as the coordinator of Province 5 of the Episcopal Church. By considering this and passing this resolution, you will stand with your siblings. Sorry, Chair. You will stand with your siblings across the province and across the church, especially when we talk about migration with dignity. So I encourage you to vote yes.
Microphone B.
Alicia Hager, Emmanuel Hastings. I also rise in support, noting that our presiding bishop only about 2 weeks ago called on the Episcopal Church to be an engine of resistance. Now is the time to speak love and to speak it loudly.
Is there anyone opposed? Then let's call the question. All in favor, please raise your green cards. All opposed? The motion is carried. We are going to take a 5-minute break. I know it's not very long. Let's be back here by 4:15. We've got an announcement ready to. Okay, I'm gonna go grab some water. Anyone else need water?
Yeah, who's reading things?
That is such a small problem, right? Alan, just trying to find my good pen. I know, I can sign my name all the time together. Let me find my real pen. The blue one. It's just for a song. And then there's like 20 seconds and then we're done. How do you want me to help? But I have to do slides.
As you're making your way back to your seats, as soon as convention adjourns, any members of the Bishop Search Committee, please gather just outside this room. And the standing committee, right here. You'll get to sit. And the Reverend Karen Thompson, if you could come to the stage. Okay. Yay. You know what? If you do that, you know what? I dare you. I dare you. Let's see here.
All right. Microphone B, we recognize.
Thank you. Nuria Parish, Diocesan staff. I rise for a point of personal privilege and cast your mind back 5 minutes ago to the vote that we just took. I want to share with this diocese that on your behalf, when we received a request from St. Paul and the Redeemer in Chicago to make pastoral visits to one of their members who was detained in Chicago and sent to the detention facility in Northlake, we did that. I did that on your behalf twice. And I'm asking you to pray this Tuesday for his federal habeas hearing, which will happen in Flint. If you could pray for William Gonzalez. And if you would like to go with me to his habeas hearing, it's at the federal court building in Flint on Tuesday, and I welcome that.
Thank you.
At 10 a.m.
Thank you. All right, before we conclude, we have some fun things to do. We want to recognize several leaders whose ministry with us has had a significant impact on our common life as a diocese. The William J. Spag Diocesan Service Award was established in 2020 to recognize individuals who have demonstrated extensive service to the diocese in modeling Christ's humility, love, compassion, and servanthood. This year's recipients are the Reverend Pamela Nardowitz and the Reverend Val Fargo. Come on forward, you two. The Reverend Pamela Nardowitz brings energy into every room. Her leadership skills are stellar. She serves as part of the standing committee. She's been on Diocesan Council, a delegate to General Convention, served the COM. She led the Assisting Bishop Search. She is one of the movers and shakers that is bringing Habitat for Humanity back to life in her county. She works ecumenically. She mentors new leadership, and this isn't all. Pam is a graduate of the original Coppage Gordon School for Ministry. And in the early days, she was bivocational, working as a nurse at the same time that she was a priest. She's brought these deep gifts to the church. She is a contextual leader, aware of who she's serving, and always asking people to go deeper. Pam is joyful to her core, and we are grateful for her faithful work in our diocese. The Reverend Val Fargo's quiet presence is always deeply thoughtful and well-grounded. She's been a lifelong mentor of seminary students, even back when she was a Presbyterian minister. But as an Episcopal priest, she's been the moving force behind the Coppage Gordon School for Ministry to form both priests and deacons, moving the process for formation to the Iona Collaborative. She's been central in the work of the Academy for Vocational Leadership, and she does that work so well that others often look to us for ideas to try things out. Val challenges students to go deeper, to be academically excellent, to continue the work of discernment, encouraging them to become the people that God is calling them to be. Thank you, Val, for your leadership. Congratulations, you too. The Bishop Bill Gordon Award for Service was first awarded in 1993. It recognizes leaders who have exercised extraordinary spirit to the diocese and who, like Bishop Gordon, call us into a spirit of innovation, collaboration, and the ministry of all of the baptized. And this year, she's not here today, we will recognize the Reverend Val Ambrose. Many of us have known the guiding and kind leadership of the Reverend Val Ambrose. Not only has she supplied at pretty much every single church in Legacy West, she has served as canon, and when she was ordained, she was the first openly gay priest in the diocese. She's been the president of ECW, served as treasurer of Legacy West, on the standing committee on Diocesan Council. She's a source of so much good information and wisdom, and a mentor to so many, and always sees the best in her colleagues. She is a blessing to everyone. Congratulations, Val. The Swords into Plowshares Award was established in 2017. It recognizes those who are actively working to dismantle systems of oppression and violence, looking instead with justice and mercy towards God's kingdom, realized on earth. Like the words from the prophet Isaiah, where leaders call us all into the work of beating our swords into plowshares and our spears into pruning hooks, and to study war no more. During the last few years, the Beloved Community and Dismantling Racism Committee has turned up their work. Not only did they suggest and implement a new training for all in the diocese, but they've also led these trainings with faithfulness and hope. That's why this year we acknowledge the work of this committee, specifically the steering committee made up of co-chairs Carol Redwine and Sarah Hines, and the faithful membership of Charlotte Booker, Jeanette Etten, Jaleisha Garrity, Milton Roy, and the Revs Sue York, Linnea Stifler, Molly Bosher, and the Reverend Canon Nuria Love Parrish. Thank you all for your commitment to this important work, and come on forward to receive your awards. Thank you all for this important work. All right, there's a few more who are coming up. Come on, Linnea. I probably should. The Making All Things New Award was first given in 2022. This award recognizes leaders who invite us into new approach, new vision, and new possibilities, seeking common ground as we build beloved community. This year's recipients are the members of the Commission on Ministry. The Commission on Ministry advises and assists the bishop, or in our case, the ecclesiastical authority, in discerning, preparing, and guiding those who are called to ministry of any kind in the church. As you might imagine, at the beginning of this process, there were a few differences between the processes of Legacy East and West. Yet these very two committees, led by their chairs, Ellen McVeigh, and the Revs Lily Marks and Jim Para, along with the helpful shepherding of the Revs Diane Steer and Jan Gockerman, together pulled off the juncturing of Legacy East and West Comms, a remarkable bit of relationship building, deep listening, and hard work. I know I speak for many when I say I am in awe of their beautiful process. Thank you. So I'm going to read their names. Annalie Kuby, the Revs Nancy Mayhew, Emily Klein, Ellen McVeigh, come forward and get your certificates. From Legacy West, Patrick Foster, Dr. Rosemary Hagan, the Rev Deacon Trish Harris, the Reverend Jay Johnson, the Rev Lily Marks, the Reverend Deacon Cindy Naraki, the Rev Jim Para, Kathy Searles, Laura Raceman, Susan Lund Coyle, and the Rev David Myers. Let's express our gratitude for this incredible work of these leaders. Yeah, you guys need your picture taken. Where's... Good job. Yay for this crew. Good job, guys. Thank you. And it is my joy to announce a new award. The Jaleisha Ford Garrity Award for Young Leaders who share their gifts freely and beautifully. Jaleisha Ford Garrity loved the church. She began showing this love as a camp counselor for Camp Chick at a tender age and continued to participate in formation and strategic conversations. She served on Diocesan council and standing committee, as well as helping with Legacy East as they did the work of dismantling racism. She loved her local church, St. Paul's Flint. Following in the footsteps of her grandfather, John Roberts, she served as a member of the gospel choir, head of the diversity committee, a Eucharistic minister, as senior warden, organizing the breast cancer walk every October, part of the liturgy and worship committee, and in countless other areas. She showed up, was faithful, and then she jumped in. The inaugural recipients of this award are the Reverend Kay Hauk and the Very Reverend Derek Quinn. The Reverend Kay Hauk came to her church in the height of pandemic with no in-person meetings or services. She offered virtual homilies, scriptural formation, and by Advent of that year was offering online spiritual formation and book studies until they could be together again. The Reverend Kay Hauk exemplifies new leadership for churches. She does not abide by the expected hierarchical top-down structures of the past, inviting all at Emmanuel Petoskey to the table, trusting in their God-given gifts and talents. Kay leads by trusting that Spirit is present at all times, raising up disciples of Christ, bringing the kingdom of God to these times. Her joyful spirit, discerning mind, and gentleness are a gift to all that she encounters. The Very Reverend Derek Quinn accepted his first call out of seminary, an involving ministry, as the first priest shared between St. Paul's, Elk Rapids, and Grace Traverse City. When there was a need for the vice chair in Legacy West, Derek offered his name without knowing what the next year would bring. He then found himself navigating all the practical details of juncture as part of the transition leadership team. At the same time he was serving the diocese, he also ably managed and developed the work of Jubilee House, a ministry of Grace Church in Traverse City, working with the rector and the staff to secure city funding and to create a sustainable structure for this ministry. Derek leads by offering all of his gifts, all of the time for God's service, in humility and in harmony with those who serve God alongside him. Let's give them a round of applause and take their photograph. This year, we also want to offer a special award for 2025 that we're calling Standing in the Gap. The canons call the Standing Committee the Bishop's Council of Advice, a group of roughly half-lay leaders and half-clerical people who give freely of their time, their talents, and their wisdom. The Standing Committee also serves as the ecclesiastical authority in a season without a bishop. Some might call Barb Ilka and the Reverend Ann Schneer crazy for accepting the co-presidency of the Standing Committee in this season of a bishop's resignation, but Ann and Barb said yes, and we, as the Episcopal Diocese of the Great Lakes, were very thankful. Please join me in giving a hand to Barb Ilka and the Reverend Ann Schneer for standing in the gap during a difficult season. Lastly, on behalf of the Standing Committee and all of us here in this room, we want to acknowledge our full and part-time staff members. Rachel Rose, Mackenzie Bade-Nill, Nuria Love Parrish, Tracy Little, Sunil Chandy, Alan James, Mark Sullivan, Angela Kruger, and Sarah Philo, Jess Kidder, Mary Simpson, Philip Palacios, Ariel Laster, Devin King, Joel Termo, Rada, BJ Hybor, Beck LeClaire, David Vickers, and Jeff Brown. Thank you for your continued faithfulness to our diocese as standing in this season of change. Thanks for answering texts and phone calls from us early to late, providing resources, helping us find what we don't know, and showing up day by day. Thanks for your kindness, your respect, and for supporting so many essential and beautiful ministries. Our staff is talented and wise. It has been a joy to work with these beautiful and hardworking humans, and I tell you, this is the part of this job I will miss the most. Please join me in thanking our wonderful staff. All right, we're almost done. Now I call on the Reverend Kay Hauk and the Reverend Nancy Mayhew, co-chairs of the Resolutions Committee, for courtesy resolutions.
Resolved that the Second Convention of the Episcopal Diocese of the Great Lakes extends congratulations to the Bishop of London, the Right Reverend and Right Honorable Dame Sarah Mullally, the 106th Archbishop Designate of Canterbury, and assure her of our continued prayers.
Resolved that the Second Convention of the Episcopal Diocese of the Great Lakes extends gratitude to the Most Reverend Sean W. Rowe, presiding Bishop of the Episcopal Church, for his presence among us at this convention, and with assurance of our continued prayers.
Resolved that the Second Convention of the Episcopal Diocese of the Great Lakes welcomes the Right Reverend Ann Hodges Koppel as our new assisting bishop, who hails from the great state of North Carolina.
Resolved that the Second Convention of the Episcopal Diocese of the Great Lakes sends greetings to the Right Reverend Bonnie A. Perry, 11th Bishop of the Episcopal Diocese of Michigan, the Right Reverend Rayford Ray, 11th Bishop of the Episcopal Diocese of Northern Michigan, and the Right Reverend J. Moses Quasada Mota, 4th Obispo de la Iglesia Episcopal Dominicana.
Resolved that the Second Convention of the Episcopal Diocese of the Great Lakes sends greetings to the Reverend Julie Schneider Thomas, Bishop of the Northwest Lower Michigan Synod of the ELCA, the Right Reverend Dr. Donald P. Kreis, Bishop of the Southeast Michigan Synod of the ELCA, and the Reverend Catherine A. Finnegan, Bishop of the Northern Great Lakes Synod of the ELCA.
Resolved that the Second Convention of the Episcopal Diocese of the Great Lakes expresses gratitude to the Standing Committee, including the Reverend Molly Bosher, President of the Standing Committee, and the Diocesan Council, including the Reverend Alicia Hager, Vice President of Diocesan Council.
Resolved that the Second Convention of the Diocese of the Great Lakes expresses gratitude to the Liturgy Design Team, the Very Reverend Alyssa Anderson, the Venerable Linda Crane, the Venerable Beth Drew, Gregory Gwaltney, David Howley Lowry, the Reverend Joseph Kennedy, Rachel Rose, Dr. Kevin Simons, and the Reverend Randall Warren for their coordination of worship for this convention, and for those assisting in the Eucharist, the Right Reverend Ann Hodges Koppel, presider, the Most Reverend Sean W. Rowe, preacher. We also express gratitude to the Convention Planning Committee members, the Reverend Alan James, Mackenzie Beatty-Nill, Angela Kruger, Gloria Lara, Rachel Rose, the Reverend Canon Nuria Love Parrish, the Reverend Chip Russell, Dr. Kevin Simons, Mark Sullivan, and the Reverend Randall Warren. Finally, we extend gratitude to the family of Jaleisha Ford Garrity in recognition of her service on this planning committee.
On behalf of the Resolutions Committee, we move the adoption of these courtesy resolutions.
All in favor of the courtesy resolutions, please signal your approval with applause. I call on the interim executive officer, Alan James, for any final announcements.
Reminder at the close of this meeting, standing committee members, please come meet up the front table to elect your new president. Bishop Search Committee, meet out in what was the exhibit hall area for your meeting. The Dominican Development Group announcement, the construction has begun on the church. They're sending their thanks for our support. And February 5th, trip to the Dominican Republic. See Beth Drew. Beth Drew, stand up and wave. See Beth Drew if you have any questions or want to help in any way. Reminder, on your way out at what was the registration tables is a large box for your name tags and your voting devices. Make sure you get especially the voting device in the box because we do know what number was yours and you are responsible for it. Oh, wait a minute. Correction, update. Sarah.
Yes, sorry, thank you. We needed to clear out of what was the registration area for a wedding that is incoming. So the staff has asked us, as you directly go down that hallway, go out the doors directly in front of you. We have the box for collection right there. I will be standing there so that we don't disturb the wedding. You'll see the wedding in the hallway.
Box right next to Sarah is where you want to put your name tag and your voting device. And the last announcement, which I'm, as the convention planning team leader, already excited to start thinking about, our third diocesan convention of the Great Diocese of the Great Lakes will be held at the Van Dyke Mortgage Center in Muskegon, Michigan. Break out your calendars, October 23rd and 24th, 2026, at which time the delegates will elect the first bishop of the Diocese of the Great Lakes.
I call on Avery Sears and Aidan Weaver and the Reverend Joe Kennedy to lead us in our closing prayers. Please stand.
Glorify the Lord, O springs of water, seas, and streams.
O men and women everywhere, glorify the Lord. Sing praise and give honor forever. Praise to the holy and undivided Trinity, one God, as it was in the beginning, is now, and will be forever. Amen. Hallelujah.
Now a song of Ezekiel. I will take you from among all nations and gather you from all lands to bring you home. I will sprinkle clean water upon you and purify you from false gods and uncleanness. A new heart I will give you, and the Spirit put within you. I will take the stone heart from your chest and give you a heart of flesh. I will help you walk in my laws and cherish my commandments and do them. You shall be my people, and I will be your God.
Let us pray. Blessed are you, O Christ our God. You granted wisdom to fishers of old by sending down upon them the Holy Spirit. Through them you draw the whole world into your net. We thank you for calling us to be the Episcopal Diocese of the Great Lakes and numbering us among those who fish for people. Make us effective at drawing others into the liberating net of your love, and grant that we may joyously and resolutely care for creation and its waters, all of which we ask in the name of God and undivided Trinity, one God, all alive through all ages. Amen.
Amen.
Does everyone know this one?
Sure.
You got it. The song is designed to be sung in a round, so we're going to do a couple loops through, if that's okay. When I've had enough, I'll go like this. That means finish up, wherever you might be. I'll start. Anne, Schneer, you're going to start our second part of the round, okay? Thank you.
Let us bless the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Glory to God, whose power, working in us, can do infinitely more than we can ask or imagine. Glory to God from generation to generation in the church and in Christ Jesus forever and ever.
I am so sorry. Adjourned. I'm so sorry. Well, it was like a lot of.
Can't believe you just went there.
Well,
Molly is
some of us were praying. Good praying.